Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another Thursday evening of incredible racing action, and because we are back once again to continue the story of the Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly hosted by none other than SimRacing International. The story is set here today for round number 4 of 10 and we have made our way back to the US of A and coincidentally back to Florida. However, returning to the Sunshine State, there is plenty of sun to go around, but what's new here today is the venue we're racing at. Last time we were here, it was in round number 2 for a pair of sprint races at the Daytona International Speedway, a highly familiar circuit to all the drivers up and down the grid regardless of what class and split they run in. However, here today we see a newcomer to the series and indeed a very fresh circuit on the iRacing platform, for it is none other than the Miami International Autodrome, a circuit which only opened its doors in 2022. Purpose built for Formula 1 in the grounds of the Hard Rock Stadium of Miami Gardens, this is a circuit which brings together quite an interesting array of corners and straights. 3.36 miles in length and with 19 corners, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this is going to be a highly technical circuit where it's all about the corners. However, with the corner sequences being so heavily condensed together and in 2 long straights connecting them together, what it means around this circuit is there's very little opportunity to be able to make moves into the corners, and it all may come down to the heavy braking zones and being quick on the straights. So therefore, there's going to be one key theme here as Formula 1 drivers have found out over the last 3 years, and that is getting good track position from the outset. And with 2 sprint races today, definitely track position is going to be key because there's going to be limited strategic options, and therefore our drivers will need to do well to qualify from the outset. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight into another round of absolutely incredible racing action here in the Premier Sim Racing Series. Of course, you're tuning in right now on YouTube at the SimRacing International YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search for SimRacing International or SRI and you can catch in all the racing action there. This broadcast is your Split A broadcast where you're tuning in to both the elite and also the pro drivers. We also do have another broadcast going on in parallel, that's Split B, and that'll be covering your Premier and Evo drivers, and indeed that's in the very capable hands of both Chaz Jaycott and Dara Thacker. But meanwhile here for Split A you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of this season, including today. And as we make our way into today, don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know how you're all doing in the YouTube chat there, as we do say hello to a good number of you already, including Alex MV R7V, and also there Tristan Dino Brega. My goodness, we've got a celebrity in the YouTube chat, ladies and gentlemen, one of our previous champions of the elite class for the RDSA esports team. They've taken a bit of a breather from sim racing over the last few months, but indeed we've got to take a bow there because we are in the presence of an absolute superstar in this grid, and indeed good to see him tuning in today. And we say hello to Tristan. We also do say hello to Jordan B there, also to Akobe, who says congratulations to me, and I do believe that might be in reference to the fact that today I celebrate my 33rd birthday, ladies and gentlemen. What better way to celebrate my birthday after taking a bit of a digital detox earlier today than bring you all this racing action this evening. Indeed, they wouldn't keep me away even if they tried, because I can tell you one thing, the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship is one of the best things I have week in week out to cover because of how great and intense the racing is. No doubt about it, but enough about me. Let's come on to our story as we make our way into this round and give you a recap of proceedings after 3 rounds. And here we go. So as we take a look back in time then, we look at our calendar first in. As we can see, last time out on the 22nd of January, it was the Portimão Grand Prix circuit in Portugal that played host for a 1-hour race there, and what a race it was. With the fact the conditions, well, they were highly changeable, and in the race in particular, that's where the rain arrived. In practice and qualifying, the crowds gradually came over the circuit, but there was no sign of rain. And in the first 10 to 12 minutes of the race, you'd also be forgiven for thinking we were going to an entirely dry season. However, at that point, we suddenly saw what was the rain arrive, and when it did, it completely turned the race on its head. Now in the elite class, well, there was one man who seems to be absolutely in control all the way from start to finish, and it was an absolutely dominant drive in the wet from Tseard Ploeg, who then took home victory by the best part there. And I just double checked my notes to make sure I get this right. Yes, I'm getting it right. 40 seconds was the margin with which the Vulcan Motorsports driver took the win, and it's propelled him back up the order after a dismal day at Daytona. And well, at Daytona, of course, there was one problem that went wrong for Tseard Ploeg. And that was he missed his way to the grid for race number 1 and had to start at the very back of the field. However, he won't be making that mistake today, I assure you, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that story later on, because I did catch up with him in the paddock in the build-up to today. But it was the story of Tseard Ploeg in the elite class, although there were many other standout performances, including Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, of course, bringing on home what was a very strong second-place finish, and Lewis Kenyon making it all the way to 3rd through consistency, and that's why he's still your championship leader. Meanwhile, in the pro class, where it was a story of 2 halves. In the early stage of the race, it was Fotis Katios who absolutely monstered and mastered his way forward, having started 12th in the class. He'd already gained 5 places in class and the best part of 10 places overall by the time he got to turn number 3. He absolutely pulled off an incredible race start, and he charged his way through the field and took the lead of the race early. And when the wet weather came, he seemed to be the man to beat because he had the right setup on the car. However, it was quickly found out as the rain got heavier in Portugal. Suddenly, his setup was for light to moderate wet conditions, not for the heavy wet conditions, and therefore it meant he suddenly lost all the pace. So Rhys Saunders picked things back up, but then a name that he warned us all about and told us the man to watch was Stephen Donnelly, and well, Stephen Donnelly definitely became the man to watch as he ripped his way through the field in the absolutely treacherous conditions, and in the end it was an incredible battle between himself and Rhys all the way to the finish, and Donnelly just came out on top. But what a round it was. It kept us guessing every step of the way, and as we make our way into round number 4 today, we've got 2 30-minute sprint races on our schedule, and we are here at the Miami Grand Prix circuit to see how it all unfolds, with our next round being at Monza for the combined layout. Yes, that's right, we are going to be racing both the Grand Prix circuit and also the historic oval, and that will be on the 5th of February. But we can wait for that, and let's stay with the sunny skies here of Miami and give you a recap of the championship standings then. We've told you about who your winners were last time out and the quick summary of both classes in Split A, but how exactly have the standings been shaken up as a result of round number 3? Well, as we can see, starting with the Elite Drivers' Championship, Lewis Kenyon leads, and well, in the end, I should correct myself, it was Milton Tomlinson-Dennis who picked up 3rd place, and Lewis Kenyon picked up 2nd in our previous race there. Got them in the podium, but in the wrong order. But Lewis Kenyon right now really is Mr. 2nd place at the moment, excluding what is a non-podium finish in race number 2 at Daytona on 249 points right now. Well, he won't want the name of Mr. 2nd place because he wants to pick up some wins, but understandably, with the consistency he's putting together, well, right now things are definitely looking good. And in fact, I do believe, as I just double check again, it's a post-round stewarding decision that has seen those podium positions for the 2 drives swapped around. Indeed, I'm just double checking my notes, and that confirms why we're suddenly seeing Lewis Kenyon with 3 second places rather than 2 and a 3rd. And Milton Tomlinson-Dennis having that 3rd place there, and it was a stewarding decision after all the racing was complete. Now, the Vulcan Motorsports driver, of course, at the best part there of 29 points ahead of Tseard Ploeg. Well, right now, his mission is going to be to try and continue his win streak. Given the fact he's picked up 2 wins so far, and at Daytona it all went a bit backwards, given the fact that he missed the gridding procedure for race number 1. And well, the Acura driver's now got to prove a point, which is he can continue those wins and make it onto the grid successfully for the first race of the day. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis is 12 points behind, but MTD, as he's known to friends and many up and down the paddock, and the world of racing with STR Esports driver, well, regardless of where he's finished on the podium last time out, the results are coming in for the Mercedes AMG driver, and we can't blame him if he's feeling confident today. William Humphrey sits in 4th place, meanwhile. And it was a brutal non-finisher, William Humphrey, at Portugal after an incident in towards turn number 1 midway through the race. Side by side with Villa Kotonen, up the inside he went, but unfortunately Kotonen put his rear left tyre onto the white line going in towards turn number 1, and it sent his car sideways. He collected William Humphrey, and well, both drivers came off in pieces, but William Humphrey in particular had to tow immediately to the pits. So it all went wrong for William Humphrey, and he'll be looking to bounce back today. It's then a further 12 points back to Hayden Miller, who, having picked up a 4th place last time out, is starting to build that momentum. The Scotsman had a Benedictus Sinkevicius, who had a huge error late on in the race and lost out massively at what was the Portimão circuit, but the Vulcan Motorsports driver won't be swayed away for today. He's 5 points ahead of Split Track Esports' Ryan Nickerson, who was looking good in the wet, and it's Tim Mordig, Brandon Dyer and Thomas Pugh who complete the top 10, with M.A. Hasselar in 11th place there on 62 points, 2 behind the top 10, and Jack Wyborn a further 2 points behind as well after a season best performance there to finish in 6th. Meanwhile, coming to the Pro Drivers' Championship, what exactly is the story here? And where is Rhys Saunders, who leads on 237 points to 233 of Fortis Katios. However, perhaps the bigger story is not how close these two are, and the fact they have both shared 1 second place and 1 win apiece, as well as finishes outside of the podium places, albeit Katios has been the more consistent try in terms of top performances, but of course the way the points have fallen for Rhys Saunders have been better, given the fact he's delivered in the feature races, whereas Katios has delivered in the sprint races. But look from Katios to Villa Kotonen, and this is perhaps the more important part of today, in the fact that Katios does have the best part there of a 61-point advantage to the Finnish driver from Beowulf Racing team. What does that exactly mean then going into this round? Well, do we have 2 drivers here who are already going to take control of this championship and make it a 2-horse race all the way to the finish? It's very early to say this going into round number 4, but in theory right now Saunders and Katios could achieve this today should they both make it 1 and 2 and nobody else is to break them up. But Kotonen will be eager to do so after, of course, his incident with William Humphrey. He immediately owned it when they got out the cars after the racing was complete, and in the end it was deemed a racing incident. It was a very unfortunate one between the two drivers, but the Wolf Racing team driver knows that today he's got to make amends for it. Nathan Anstis, he picked up his first podium of the season last time out, and the UK SimRacing Norris driver right now continuing to move forward, head of Mikey Story there by 11 points, with the Dexterous Motorsports Quad driver matching his feature race performance best, a 7th place once again, and then Menno Bloem for the SimRacing team Lowlands outfit in his wonderful Corvette. Well, right now the 138 driver there definitely trying to move forward with a 5th place finish, and things are starting to turn in his favour. Jamie Bardwell, it didn't quite work out for him last time out, so on 135 points he drops down to 7th place with Phoenix Racing, head of Wesley Van Rens for 9 Pegasus Panther Racing, and then we do see Liam Fraser there in 9th place for Moonshiners Racing Club, a further 2 points behind. He's non-finished, sadly, in the Portuguese conditions, and then Adam Baker completes your top 10 there. Outside the top 10 by 4 points, it's Stephen Donnelly with his win. An incredible win it was, and when I had the opportunity to catch up with him for a post-round interview, he said, don't expect the same at Miami today. Expect me to be this strong whenever the wet weather comes. We've got some time to wait until the wet weather arrives once again. But then again, you never know what Donnelly can do, to be fair, and the Irishman will definitely be still moonlighting a little bit with regards to the round from last week. Chris Jennings completes your top 12 in the Pro Championship, meanwhile, a further 9 points behind there, and yet to find his way into a top 5, and indeed was not on the grid for our previous race. But as for our team standings, meanwhile, here are your top 10, and of course these teams, just to remind you, across both splits, so some of these drivers you will not see in this specific broadcast, but you'll see them in the Split B broadcast, and vice versa. Well, Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing have moved to the top, and they are not letting it go. They've moved there, going in towards Portimão, and coming out of it, they have slightly increased their lead, with so many drivers stumbling in the wet conditions. Vulcan Motorsports, meanwhile, they have moved into 2nd place on 391 points, and they are only 10 points ahead of MJK Sim Racing, but both teams are looking good here. But Vulcan Motorsports are the biggest gainers, given the fact they've moved all the way from 8th to 2nd place. NJK Sim Racing as well, they've moved from 6th to 3rd. They are on the rise, the Split B team, head of Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, who conversely have also moved from 7th to 4th. All these teams are moving up, but if they're all moving up, who has dropped down? Well, you look to your 5th place team there of Moonshiners Racing Club, and they are 20 points behind the top 4 right now. They were the biggest losers in Portimão, arguably, and Split Straight Esports as well. They right now have fallen back slightly from 5th to 6th. It didn't quite work out for Ryan Nickerson, although it did for Fortis Katios, and therefore they'll just want to try and balance those points out where they can and bring both McLarens forward. Meanwhile, we see the other Vulcan Motorsports team there, none other than Vulcan Motorsports 1. They've moved from 9th to 7th place, and Benedictus Sinkevicius and Tseard Ploeg both looking good, and indeed Ploeg's great result offsetting Sinkevicius' struggles in the wet, and then we see 9 Pegasus Panther in 8th place down 338 points, 10 ahead of GPX SimSport Onyx, and then Axis SimSport there, the Axis SimSport Z team, complete your top 10 on 327 points. Now, outside the top 10, you can't see them on screen, is Altitude 3M Esports. They are in 11th. They've moved up there from 12th coming into this round. They're on 293 points, so it does mean there is a significant gap now, 34 points to the top 10. And meanwhile, it does mean that Altitude 3M Esports are really leading the rest of the field, the second half of the field, and they are only ahead of none other than Phoenix Racing Blue based on result countback, who are in 12th place meanwhile. But that's the standings, and how they stand, well, meanwhile, let's see who's going to stand up to the test of this circuit, because here we are, the Miami Grand Prix circuit, located in the grounds of the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, the city within Miami-Dade County of the US state of Florida. 3.36 miles in length, or 5.4 kilometers, depending on your preference of units, but what doesn't change is the number of corners. 19 of them, but you look to the circuit map, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but also the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it, and what you can see here is a circuit. It's two-dimensional in an image, and it really is a two-dimensional circuit. There is very little elevation change around here. The only elevation change we will see is effectively the run from turn 13 through to turn 15, where we do go up a slight rise and then come charging down in towards turn number 16. Beyond that, this circuit has very little elevation change as it runs its way around the stadium, which you can see there, surrounded by turns 19 through to 4. However, forgetting the stadium, the layout of the circuit is such, you've got the two extended straights that run firstly from turn number 8 all the way through the sweeping curves of 9s and 10, all the way towards 11. And the other stretch is the back straight there from turn 16 to turn 17. But in between, you have got corner sequences with turns 1 through to 8 dominated by medium speed to high speed corners. Meanwhile, the run through turn number 11 through to 16 dominated by low speed corners. But the problem with these corner corner sequences of the fact they do not offer great opportunities to go too wide necessarily, and in the dirty air of another GT3, drivers are going to find there's going to be a lot of understeer very quickly, or suddenly the rear end of the car, if they're running a lot of rear wing, is suddenly going to feel very loose. That is why track position is so critical here, and we can expect the overtakes to be primarily relegated to the straights and also the runs into the heavy braking zones of what will be turns 1, 11 and also 17. So track position is definitely going to be key here today. But that is setting the scene then, and without further ado, let's make our way back to circuit side because we've got the best part of approximately 16 minutes of qualifying left to cover. And as we hear the wonderful roar there of other McLarens making its way on past, well, let's see how our drivers are getting on right now. As we do look here to none other than Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, currently the 8th fastest in this qualifying session, but 6/10 off the overall pole time. But who exactly owns the provisional overall pole time at the moment, and elite with it as well? Well, it is none other than Tseard Ploeg, the man, of course, who absolutely led the way in Portugal, and right now he's leading the way in this qualifying session. Now, I did have the opportunity to catch up with Tseard as he was walking down the pit lane, and I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I did cheekily go along to and remind him, Tseard, it is a sprint race round tonight. Do not forget the fact that Tseard's qualifying is complete. We go straight to the grid for race number 1 because he missed the grid for race number 1 at Daytona because he still thought we had a 5-minute warm-up break between qualifying and the race. I meant it jokingly, of course, but also understandably, we can't afford to have our driver, who is one of our big contenders, and I do it the same for any driver who missed out. I give them a reminder, but we can't afford to have one of our big stars in the elite class forget about it. And indeed, a little bit of ribbon there as well. But however, it's good to catch up with him. And what he was saying to me today is the fact then his Acura, he is expecting to struggle a little bit around here. This Acura, he's had to make a lot of setup changes in order to get the car to feel comfortable through the corners. What he also revealed to me, and I had the chance to catch up with some other drivers as well who had the same insight, is the fact that through turns 2 through to 6, you can really try to chop the curbs, the apex curbs of those corners, and you can try and straighten out the corners as much as possible, albeit they are raised curbs. These are 3-dimensional curves as modelled in iRacing, and that does mean it will unsettle the car when you drive on them, and therefore driving on them regularly in the race is going to be a lot less predictable compared to doing it over a single qualifying lap. So expect drivers to gamble on driving on those curves, as we do see Ploeg giving a demonstration there through turn number 2, where essentially he drives on the curb, not on the circuit. It is legal, or drivers are aware of this fact, that you are allowed to go on there. It is not considered an off-track. But as we see our elite provisional pole sitter making his way on through, what about in the pro class? Here's Mikey Story right now. Well, how he's looking for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar. He's looking very impressive at this time. Currently half a second off of Ploeg's overall time. But in terms of man, he's trying to beat Reece Saunders. Well, Saunders is only 300ths and an extra 2,000s ahead at the moment, so it's looking very close between the Ford Mustang and the Porsche 992 driver. Villa Kotonen can also be considered in that mix. Kotonen is not too far, much further behind, and as they all make the way through, in fact, it is Story who is a 10th of Saunders. I'm misreading my numbers there. I definitely need to go to Specsavers at this rate, and well, then it's a further 300ths to Kotonen. But your top 3 in the pro class are very close together, and we've really yet to see Story have his big moment of the season so far. He's not really come close to it compared to, say, Saunders and Kotonen. But could a new circuit cause him to have that chance today? We look forward to seeing whether he's going to be able to do it. But as we do look to a few more of you in the YouTube chat there, we do say hello to Izzy Pop. And, well, good evening to you, Izzy. And, well, thank you very much for the birthday wishes. And a huge thank you there also to none other than Tristan Dieneberger for the birthday wishes. And, well, very kind words for yourself there. And I do appreciate the compliment. But as all drivers head on through, and definitely there, understandably, Jordan B, a little bit upset about the fact that we have seen that change of podium positions between MTD and also Lewis Kenyon after what was our previous race at Portugal. Unfortunately, the stewards' decision in these finals aren't to understand it, but of course, what has happened, and all these drivers will know that, and what they do at that point is, of course, move on, and that's why the stewards are there. They do everything they can impartially to make sure everything's as fair as humanly possible, but of course, when decisions go your way, it's great. When decisions don't go your way, you sit there frustrated. I've been there, I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen. I've competed in the UK SimRacing series that we host on Sundays, where shouldn't the decisions have not necessarily gone the way perhaps I've expected, and I've sat there and thought to myself, you know what? What is done is done. We've got to move on here. You can't boil over on these things, because when you do, it affects your ability to drive, and that's why we see our pro and elite drivers here. They really are machines. When they get in these cars, all they think about is the race, and when they're out of the cars, they think about anything else entirely. And I can tell you one thing, a number of these drivers have a whole variety of coping mechanisms, from listening to heavy metal before they get in the car all the way through to going spending time with their family and spending time with friends. But either way, right now, they are absolute machines, and these machines, and as our drivers make the way on through, well, there's always the human element there, no doubt doubt about it. Well, right now, in terms of that human element, we do look a little bit further down the order to Max Wheeler, the Audi R8 Evo 2 driver. And, well, I had the pleasure of catching up with Max last weekend, and I was talking to him about his car selection. Now, the funny thing is, Max has always enjoyed the Audi, and he has a little bit of a approach to the racing, which is he tries to drive the same car in a series on the simulator as his car in real life. Now, he owns an Audi in real life, so naturally he gravitates towards the Audi. However, he has tried other cars, including the Ford Mustang, for example, but what he's found is whilst those cars may theoretically be faster, he's not been as comfortable in them, and he's actually found typically those other cars have normally steered him to the nearest wall. It's just not worked out. So therefore, he's gone with the car he feels most comfortable with, but he's a very versatile driver, and you can see him race the whole variety of series, and he absolutely has a huge love. If anyone's aware of the Vintage series here on iRacing, which does host a regular Strength of Field event, and well, you'll see him in that as well. We do go all the way back to the old Audi GTO machine, and also do believe some other cars, including the Nissan R92P. CP, I believe it is, in fact. But those old cars, of course, are a relic from a bygone age compared to our GT3 machines today, but also very different styles of machines, to be fair, all the way back in what would be the Group C equivalent of that time. Whereas here we're looking at GT3 cars, what would have been known as the GT class back in that time era. But Max Wheeler making his way on around, and currently 10th fastest of your elite drivers. Well, definitely looking set here as he makes his way through turn number 8. You can see plenty of runoff area here at Miami, but also the fact that he gets it wrong, coming out the corner to the barrier. And that's what happens when you just push a little bit too much. But he immediately toes to the pits there, and he'll be able to get away with that under qualifying conditions. But when he does go racing, of course, well, he won't be able to get away with that as easily. A toe to the pits is pretty much going to put your race out of order. Given the fact we only have 30-minute races here today, 2 of them, however, we should remind you, well, keeping in mind the top 15 finishing positions of race number 1 will set the grid for race number 2. So it's always going to be a bit of an intrigue in terms of how that grid is set, and there's always the thought process, of course, in the fact that if you don't have the best of race 1s, you can always look to hunt down that grid position for race number 2. But we will see how it will play out for the drivers, and I suspect there's going to be some excitement up and down the field, even outside of the top 15. But 10 minutes left on the clock here, and who perhaps is not having the strongest of qualifying sessions right now, and perhaps needs to find a little bit more time out there. Well, one driver who's definitely struggling, only 37 drivers in attendance here today, and right now, Connor Spree really down the order here in his Mercedes-AMG. This is not looking good right now. 2.3 seconds off the overall pole time. Now, to be fair, that 2.3 seconds margin, that is not huge in the grand scheme of things here. Given how technical and complicated this circuit is, you would think that perhaps he'd be a lot further down as the car just washes out there. Coming through turn 6 in towards 7, I wonder where he just can't get the car to turn in the dirty of another car, but he wants the dirty of another car, understandably, because his concern is the fact that he needs the draft down the straight. Where so right now, Spree's definitely got a big conundrum in his hands, which is, does he just go for a lap in clear air, of which I think he's now bought himself some clear air, because he has got what is about a 4-second gap to the next car coming up behind, if not more, given there's no car in the rear of the picture, or does he try to siphon the slipstream off a car up front? Well, we'll see either way. Spree right now definitely not having a happy day so far today. Well, that's perhaps one of our elite drivers struggling a little bit. Mark Hutchinson as well there for Altitude Freedom Esports. He's down in 30th place at the moment. Not got long left in this session. Only 8.5 minutes left on the clock. And whilst the sun continues to shine here right now, in terms of our weather conditions, well, we have a track temperature that is very hot, to be fair, and it is 40 degrees centigrade on the asphalt right now. 26 degrees centigrade ambient. That is going to be quite painful to drive on, particularly once you put a couple of laps on those tyres and then you decide to push them incredibly hard. They will not feel very comfortable. It'll feel like a proverbial ice rink. That's what we always hear drivers say when the track is very hot. It feels like they're driving on an ice rink. There is too much curve at turn number 2, and into the barrier there goes Mark Hutchinson, and well, it's a sun snap to the barrier, and well, easy as that to get it wrong, and Hutchinson will get himself back out on circuit shortly, but that really does exemplify a point there. Hot tyres, hot track, and in the end, just getting the car in settled, and it all goes to the barrier as quick as that. This is not easy for any of these drivers right now. To even get inside that top 10, I suspect, is going to take an absolute Herculean effort. But speaking of good effort, as we do have a few drivers going into the pit lane, well, Lewis Kenyon makes his way on into the pits as well. Currently the full fastest. It's Ploeg, Miller, Humphrey, Kenyon. That's your top 4 of elite drivers. And then it's Saunders, your original pole sitter, ahead of Story and Katonen. Before we then go back to the theme of elite, so Tomlinson, Dennis, Modig and Nickerson that complete that top 10. Well, right now it's definitely looking to be an order whereby the pros are being forced out the top 10 wherever possible. However, we do have 3 very valiant pros, or 3 pro musketeers, if you will, trying to make sure they don't fall out of it. And understanding the pro drivers, they may be the lower class driver compared to the elites, but there's nothing stopping them from trying to push themselves ahead of the elite drivers, and normally they prefer to do so to use the elite drivers as a bit of a buffer to their rivals in the pro class. But we owe you an onboard lap, ladies and gentlemen, as we come towards the end of this session to give you an idea of what it's like to deliver a lap here around the Miami Grand Prix circuit. And, well, without further ado, I think we may be getting one shortly. We're just waiting for a driver to come up. And here's Mikey Story as he goes onto a flying lap. So down towards turn number 1 he comes, and as he does so, looks to his left for his brake marker, braking at 125 metres from the opening corner. In second gear now, building up the speed here, riding the curb, lift off the throttle, chuck the car into the right-hander at turn number 3, holding third as he makes his way on through. Now it's the wall for 4th gear, coming all the way through the long right-hander, and now ready for turn number 4, up to 5th gear, and now in towards the fast left, drop a gear, a little bit of brake, left into right here as he just points the car down to third, mounts the curb, and now in towards the long left-hander at turns 7 and 8, where essentially you go through 7, let the car run out as wide as possible and trail brake down to second gear, and now full throttle as he comes out left-hander, runs it as close as possible to the wall as much as he dares to dream to do so, and now flat out all the way up towards turn number 11. Here he can breathe a little bit, can Mikey Story, as he makes his way between the walls, straight line them as much as possible, but as he comes through the curve of 10, he'll let the car now gradually come out towards the right-hand side to open up the attack into the next braking zone. Heavy braking zone, looks to his right-hand side, and we're looking there for what will be the 150-metre board, brakes at it, down to first gear at the apex, and now from left into right here as he comes through turn number 12, mount that curb, stay as close as possible to the wall, do not get greedy with the throttle pedal, and then let the car roll out through turn number 13. Now hard on the brakes immediately, chuck the car in towards turns 14 and 15, now over to the right-hand side for turn number 16, down to first gear once again, quick shifting from first to second and back to first, and now onwards he goes, the back stretch here, he can breathe once again, as he just simply lets the car go straight on here, and we're in the tow, he'll pick up a lot of speed, but even in clear air right now, he's already pushing towards 6th gear here at 150 miles an hour. He'll make that upshift, and looks to his right-hand side now for what will be his brake marker for the hairpin at turn number 17, and it will be there at the 150-metre board. He comes all the way down the gearbox from 6th gear back to first, lowest speed corner on the circuit at 38 miles an hour at the apex, and now riding it to the wall there through turn number 18, flat out through turn number 19, and for Mikey Story, it's been an improved first sector. Has he improved in sectors 2 and 3? He hasn't in 2 nor in 3, but what's it going to be here from Story? It is a personal best of 55.365. It puts him in 600ths of Rhys Saunders. But right now, the Porsche 992 driver still needs a little bit more if he wants to beat this man, who is trying to beat his own personal best. And we're at the pro provisional pole time as he roars his way on around here. The roar of V8 on home soil, always a big factor. And the number 92 driver right now of Rhys Saunders here, hopping and skipping between his apexes. And a very heavy car, it will feel much more settled through that low speed section. But also keeping in mind the fact that this car has all the weight towards the front rather than the rear, which means in the opening half a lap, this car may be subject to a lot more lift-off oversteer compared to some of the rivals. But as he makes his way onwards, well, right now, Saunders knowing he's just got to keep it together. And in terms of the downforce they'll be running, most of the drivers will be running maximum downforce here. Those who dare take some rear wing off, they will gain on the long stretches, but they will lose the ability to be as quick through the corner. So it will be a bit of a juggling act, but it may be the idea that you go for a qualifying setup here with maximum rear wing, and in the race, if you qualify well, just take a slight bit of rear wing off and try to compensate for it elsewhere on the car, perhaps the suspension setup, particularly the ride height, with the idea being therefore you just gain a little bit more on the straight and don't make yourself as vulnerable to the slipstream draft from behind, which as always is a blessing and a curse. But as Saunders comes across line, no improvement there. Meanwhile, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis still trying to find a bit more time. Cantios, in fact, the split track esports driver, he's 15th at the moment, 6th in class. Now, to be fair, wherever he qualifies, it means nothing, as he demonstrated at Portugal. And as he makes his way onwards, Freewheeler Racing there, their official YouTube account, saying, commentators curse, thanks, Paul. And I do apologise, Max. I kid you not, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a chat about this, the Freewheeler Racing team and I, and even in a post-round broadcast on Sunday, somehow recording a broadcast the best part of what is 10 hours after the racing has happened, I've somehow managed to put a commentator's curse on the Wheeler Racing team. We don't know how it's happened, it just happens. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, go check out last Sunday's broadcast, albeit it was on a Monday, where you'll see exactly what happens to their drivers in the race, where I kid you not, I start to talk about them, and suddenly both cars end up off the circuit as quick as that. But meanwhile, coming back to the present right now, as we also say hello there to Craig Tipton and also to Soviet Seek, who's cheering on there, none other than the Beowulf Racing team. And I hope you're both doing well, gents. And well, also there, seeing some feedback from Tristan Navarrete saying, loving the new visuals with the driver picks. And indeed, thank you for the feedback. We've got some more refinements coming to the broadcast overlay in the weeks ahead. But indeed, we've got a bit of a new identity here at SimRacing International for 2026. And we're looking to try and continue to move ourselves forward and improve the quality of the broadcast week in, week out. You'll see those changes gradually, albeit they will be little by little. But right now, little by little, this qualifying session is coming to its end as we see our pole sitter right now looking to be in control of proceedings. 1.5 tenths is advantage over Hayden Miller, so it is going to be a Vulcan Motorsports 1-2 at this point, with William Humphrey then bursting the bubble in the second row of the grid. But elsewhere, meanwhile, Jared Love right now with the Scotsman in the number 94. 24th place is the best he's able to achieve here for DC Motorsport in his Ferrari 296. However, again, a driver who does go a little bit better in the race conditions compared to qualifying. He's openly admitted that, particularly at the Saxon Ring. And as he comes up the hill through turns 13, 14 and 15, right now for Love, he'll be hoping that perhaps he can just move a little bit further towards the top 20. We'll see what he's going to be able to do, as we also see behind him there, that is going to be the Porsche 9 and 2 following him. That's Wayne Douglas, his teammate. And Douglas looked quite quick at Portimão last time out, to be fair, especially in qualifying, but in the wet conditions, it all seemed to fall apart. So therefore, you'll be hoping for a much more straightforward and consistent day today, as we look to Mark De Vries here in his Corvette. And right now, De Vries down in 35th place. This is definitely not working out for him. Indeed, several drivers here finding that things are not clicking together. But do keep in mind as well, given the fact this is a sprint race round, when the clock sets its way to 0, we will not be having any overtime. That will be it. So our drivers need to get their laps done now. Otherwise, they will be losing the lap they're currently on, and we will be taking their previous best lap instead. As Emir Hassalar makes his way down for Heracles' performance. He's only 20 seconds away from the end of the session. I don't think he's going to finish this one. Villa Katona right now, he's on a personal best here by looks things. Can he get it to the line with 10 seconds to go? I think he will just about do so as he heads towards the line. Here he comes with only 3 seconds left on the clock. He will squeeze this in. He's 7th. He does not improve. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is qualifying complete. Let's head to the grid then and see how they all line up for our first of 2 races here in Miami. And as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for race number 1. It is Tseard Ploeg who takes pole position for Vulcan Motorsports 1 there by 1.5 tenths over his sister team driver of Hayden Miller. Behind him on row number 2, it's William Humphrey who breaks up the Vulcan Motorsports pack for Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech Racing ahead of Lewis Kenyon in the end by a whole tenth. Then for the Vulcan Motorsports 2 driver, it'll then be your pro pole sitter of Reece Saunders for Altitude 3 Esports. He's going to be very happy with that, given the fact this circuit doesn't normally suit, I should say. Let's use the correct words there. I promise you I haven't had a drink today. That's after this broadcast I'll be doing that. But Reece Saunders definitely taking pole position there in a front engine rear wheel drive car, where normally it would be mid-engine or rear engine cars that should have the upper hand. So well done to him for that for Altitude 3 Esports, but he only did it by 600ths over Dexterous Motorsports Kamar's Mikey Story. Vela Katonen will start in 3rd there of the pro drives, the Beowulf Racing team, close to the front. However, knowing that he's got some pressure from behind, because he's got 3 elite drivers to complete the top 10 behind him, starting with Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, his Mercedes AMG Evo, and the World of Racing with STR Esports driver, knowing he's got a way to go here. Then again, we know he comes on quick in the races, if not in qualifying. Team Modig for SimCoach, he enjoys a season best qualifying points there, the Swedish driver in 9th place. Well done to him in his Porsche 9 and 2. He's going to be looking good. And Ryan Nicholson as well for Split Straight Esports, delivered under the radar there, 7 tenths off of the pole time, but inside that top 10, where can the Canadian driver take this? Can he make it back-to-back top 10 finishes in the elite class and overall? We will see. We then come to 11th place, and it's going to be Brandon Dyer there with a very good qualifying performance compared to his previous round best. The Inter-Racing team driver there from the United Kingdom, just outpacing JSD Racing Stephen Donnelly. And, well, we remember what we said about Stephen Donnelly, the fact he impressed in the wet, but didn't expect to be going well in the dry here today. Well, Donnelly, I think, might have surprised himself with that 12th place. That's 4th in the pro class there for JSD Racing. Behind the Joe Sapra Racing machine, it's then going to be Matthew Jordan, the privateer just ahead of Emir Hassalar for Heracles Performance, and the Dutchman there then being followed up by Fortis Catio for Split Straight Esports and Robin Noel Brown for GPX SimSport Xenon. They make up the 8th of the grid, but watch out for Catios. He'll be looking to try and launch his way as quickly as he can up the order. And Noel Brown as well, I suspect he'll have the bit between his teeth in that Ford Mustang. Kyle Roy then begins the day in 17th for Miracle Group M Academy. And well, right now the Scotsman, 9. That's not where he wants to really start, but he's going to be in very close company there, and in a very similar car alongside him of Wayne Douglas for DC Motorsport Privateers. It's then going to be Peter Duke, Wayne Douglas' teammate, starting 19th just behind. And understandably, that Duke's going to be very eager to move forward as much as he can. And then we'll see Nick Stubb complete your top 20 there. The Dutchman Vulcan Fasters by Glasstech. Not the best qualifying session, but then again, he knows the limits that his Mercedes will have here. And therefore, he'll be looking just to try and pick up the places and others get it wrong. In 21st place, it's going to be Max Wheeler for Phoenix Racing Blue. It went wrong in the late stages of the qualifying, but the Audi driver right now will look to try and get the rear of that car settled down and just move forward. For MRC 495, Jack Wyborn is alongside the net in 22nd place. Then it's going to be UK SimRacing Norris's Nathan Anstis starting 23rd ahead of Jared Love for DC Motorsport. And then we will have Connor Spree starting 25th. He did improve from the back of the field over the remainder of the qualifying session. And the Vulcan Motorsports driver making his way forward onto that 13th row. He's going to be in the company of Adam Baker for LS Racing. And then we do have James Howard starting 27th for Dexterous Motorsports MX. Ahead of David Hutchison for Axis SimSport X. Not having a good qualifying session, but the Scotsman looked stronger in the race conditions normally. And the same can be said for his teammate there of what was none other than James Hanworth to an extent. But in fact, it's not teammates there, as I get the wrong teams in the right order, because it's the Dexterous Motorsports MX teammates of Howarth and Ross Young, who line up in a line there with Howarth 27th and Ross Young 29th. The Scotsman there in the number 28, just ahead of Jamie Bardwell for Phoenix Racing Red, who rounds off your top 30. Outside the top 30, coming down to what would be 31st place, it's then going to be Wesley Van Rens, 9 Pegasus Banfro Racing. He's had a difficult qualifying session, and Mark Hutchinson will be one of your lowest qualifying elite drivers in 32nd for Altitude Freedom Esports. He's going to be in the company of Danny Phillips for Dexterous Motorsports Guar, and then it's going to be Frank Buyerson in 34th for DNR Esports ahead of Mart de Vries, who has his weakest qualifying points of the season for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. But the Dutchman's in the company of Mark Johnson, who starts 36th at Axis SimSports Y, and then it will be Matthew Bacon in 37th place, who completes the starting order for Team SimCoach. So that's how they all line up, ladies and gentlemen. And well, as this formation lap gradually teeters its way up in towards the very tight complexes of turns 12 through to 16. We look to the blimp camera course, and here's the front of the field right now, but further back, everyone's getting themselves set. Keep your eyes on this man as he gets going today, none other than David Hutchison, as they all queue up 2 by 2 here, and we're all going to take their time to make the way through this, given the fact that it really is one wide through the sequence of corners. You will not be expecting any drivers to go 2 wide through here. If they do, well, I can tell you one thing, if 2 drivers survive it 2 wide there, I'm going to be very impressed at that. Will David Hutchison right now wager, and I think that he will need to make that progress as quickly as he can. Looking a bit further back to the very back of the field, this is Matthew Bacon's on board. And well, the number 14 driver here, he'll be thinking to himself, you know what, I can get the work done. I've just got to take it bit by bit. We'll see what Bacon can do. As he makes his way onwards, we look back to the exterior cameras, ladies and gentlemen, and well, looking back up towards the front of the field, they're now all being stacked together here. There's not long to go before we go green flag racing, and it will be to the Acura NSX Evo 22 of Tseard Ploeg to take a screen for the first 30 minutes of racing here in Miami for round number 4 of Split A's First Day GT3 Championship Season 11, brought to you by SimRacing International. And it's lights out, and away we go here for 30 minutes of racing, and Ploeg and Miller absolutely nail their respective starts. It's going to be a drag race down towards turn number 1, as meanwhile the field behind looks to serpentine as quick as possible. Gatonen taps the rear Saunders not just once but twice. Meanwhile, Francis Catius diving up the inside there, up into 8th place already. He finds the space again. All the drives saved through the first couple of quarters by looks of things, as everyone right now up in towards turns 2 and 3. But has there been an incident up the road? I think there has. Somebody's been ejected. That's Stephen Donnelly, who's been sent out wide. I wonder if he's been involved in contact with someone. Wayne Douglas is dropping down the order like a stone. I wonder if he's been caught up. But meanwhile, coming back to the front of the field as they make the way for the S's sequence in towards turns 7 and 8. And we see Ploeg there finally setting things down with Miller tucking in behind him, and William Humphrey right there as further behind. 2 wide here between Francis Catius and Brandon Dyer. The all-white Porsche Brandon Dyer trying to make some progress up through. Oh, somebody going sideways there at turn number 8. Couldn't quite see who that was. They've got it back together though, and I think that might have been none other than Matthew Bacon going very sideways there, although don't quote me on that, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get confirmation when we can. But heading down the first of the long stretches, here's a 2 wide between Mark Hutchison and James Howard, and Connor Spree gets involved now as they get ready to go onto the race in towards turn number 11. Indeed, absolutely ferocious, full throttle for a brief moment, and suddenly the hard on brakes. One drive goes deep, another one goes with them there. That is Cole Roy going deep. He doesn't normally make mistakes, and Jack Wyborn practically following him off the road and making some contact. And Roy right now trying to keep where's Max Wheeler behind him there. Wheeler up the inside of wide ones. He will take the place of the elite driver, but not for Roy, the pro in front of him, as they all now make the way through the very tight section before heading onto the back stretch. So suddenly once again now they build up all the speed and they roar the way down towards turn number 17. Could this be an opportunity in the draft for some drives? We will see. As Mikey Story right now heading onwards, and as he do, well, you can see that Villa Kotonen looking one way then the other. Story going defensive. William Humphrey meanwhile goes very aggressive on the inside of both the Vulcan Motorsports drivers, and in the end he makes it a bit too deep into the hairpin, but that opens up the door for Miller and Ploeg to battle. We'll get a replay of that when we can. Become the end of lap number 1, where it's going to be Tseard Ploeg who leads ahead of Hayden Miller, who tucks in behind him. Miller running the Aston Martin now for the remainder of the season by looks things, as Humphrey has to go defensive in 3rd versus Lewis Kenyon. Then Reece Saunders is your pro leader still in 5th, ahead of Mikey Story and Villa Kotonen, and then we do have Milton Tomlinson-Dennis sitting in 8th place at the moment ahead of Brandon Dyer and Fotis Katios to complete your top 10. And Katios has been one of the biggest gainers since the start of the race, all the way up from 15th to 10th. I don't know how the man does it. He always finds a way to sneak his way on the inside of many a driver, and today has been no exception. But still more to come, of course. And further back, Jamie Bardwell's had a reasonable start to this race. The Phoenix race in red. He's moved up from what was 30th place to 24th. He's over the back of David Hutchison and also Nathan Anstis here as they make the way through in towards turn 7, 8, and we ride on board. Now, with the field having got their tyres up to temperature and now starting to go into single file formation, this is where we'll begin to see those battles build up now, and what is more isolated groups to try and start to form, rather than the long conga line or the long snake train, if you will. But Bardwell here, the battle of the V8s versus Hutchison, both in the toe of another car, so therefore they'll be practically equal here. These two cars very similar on straight line speed, but as they come down towards turn number 11, does Bardwell think about a move up the inside? He thinks about it once, he thinks about it twice, but in the end Hutchison sees him coming and says, I'll put it in the middle of the road and make you work for it even more. So Bardwell can't find his way through, and he's got Hutchison tucking in behind right now, and that is Hutchinson behind him rather than Hutchison in front of him. And as they make the way on through right now, well, Bardwell definitely in the Hutchinson sandwich. Through in towards the sequence. Oh, that's a big slide there for David Hutchison, and well, the ex-driver still trying to get that car settled down here. It's not easy, and these 4 Mustangs right now, they will be sliding, and track temperature is really going to impact their rear tyre grip. As you can see, Bardwell gets a better run out of 16. He's going to drag race his way up the inside here. Further back, we've got a couple of drivers trying to all follow each other as we have a yellow flag for Adam Baker, who you can see off the right in the picture slowing down there to serve a slowdown, and up the inside goes Bardwell in the foreground camera shot. Hutchison looking around the outside. They give each other room to cooperate. Car around there. That's Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. How on earth has he done that? Has he been aided on this adventure? Has he done it of his own volition? I don't know, but we will know very soon what's happened to him. Meanwhile here, we've got a Baker versus Young fighting over what is 16th place in the pro class and some valuable points. And right now, these two drivers going at it, but it is going to be, by looks of things, Ross Young on the inside. Can he beat the Mercedes to turn number 2? And the answer is going to be not quite. They're still too wide here. In towards 3 they go. And at long last, Ross Young does get it done, and Wesley Van Rens tucks in behind. But meanwhile, at the front of the field on lap 3, it's Tseard Ploeg. The Vulcan Motorsports 1 driver right now still in control, at least for a moment, but Miller and Humphrey are back right with him. Looking back to Ryan Nickerson, meanwhile. He's got his teammate from Split Straight Esports, Fotis Katios, right behind him. But right now, I think Nickerson's going to be saying to himself, you know what, let's just keep moving forward. He's chasing after Brandon Dyer. And well, he's gone from the McLaren to the Ferrari for the remainder of the season by looks of things. So therefore, the team will decide to split the cars. And well, this might be part of the wider plan. In towards the braking zone for the next section of corners. What you can see, there's Matthew Jordan looking up the inside of Katios, trying to go for the move here. And does he get it done? This will be for 4th place in pro. They're 2 wide coming through, turn number 12. And at some point, Matthew Jordan's going to back out here, or force the issue to turn 13. He'll force Katios to back out, but front with the wall there. Brandon Dyer making ace to the wall, and unfortunately, Nickerson too close to be able to squeeze up the inside into 14. So therefore, he has to wait now. But Brandon Dyer really struggling through the tight sequence this time. And as he makes his way down the back stretch here, well, that Porsche's got a lot of low gear acceleration, but the Ferrari will gain, and now that Dyer has no toe in front of him, Villa Kotonen is 2.5 seconds up the road. Is he going to be vulnerable here into the next braking zone? Well, it is a long back stretch. It is the best part of a kilometre, and as they get ready to head into that hairpin, the Inter-Racing team driver is safe this time. Here comes Katios looking up the inside. I think that's more defensive versus Jordan rather than offensive versus Nickerson. He doesn't put his teammate under pressure, but I think naturally he's going to apply some pressure there right now as they make the way through turn number 19. Haslar's also getting into the back of this queue here. They are all queuing up in the hunt. We've still got the best part of 25 minutes of this race left to go. Only completed 5 minutes of it. Here comes Haslar the inside of Jordan. This is an overall track position. and he's going to make that stick, the Heracles performance driver, and gets it done as they now make the way through the left and into the right. So the 1-2-1 driver doing that well, but now he's got to try and move forward versus Katios, and then he can chase down his fellow elite peers of Nicholson and Dyer. And further back, oh, goodness me, that's not good. And that is Nick Stubb into the barrier. Stubb grinding along and being pushed along there by what is the stuck car of Jared Love. They've had a big coming together through turn number 3, and well, that's all gone wrong. It's gone very backwards, and they're waiting to get turned. They're waiting for the field to come through, and this is going to be the equivalent of the Austin Powers meme of a very narrow corridor and trying to get the car turned. This is going to be a 3-point turn, the end for Nick Stubb. He finally gets it turned, but we need a replay of what exactly happened there. But before we can get that, we need to come back to 2 Aston Martins fighting here in towards turn number 11. No, it's not Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. Instead, it's Hayden Miller and William Humphrey, 2 more famous drivers here as they make their way through turn number 12. And right now, Humphrey all over the back of Miller, and I think William Humphrey trying to send a message to the Vulcan Motorsports driver as they grind off the wall. There's Sparks fine, which is right now he wants that second place, and he doesn't like the fact he's got an usurper in front of him who's gone to the Aston Martin. And right now, William Humphrey feels as though he's the king of the Aston Martin. He definitely is on the brakes, I can tell you that. We've seen that already this season, but right now he's got to push a little bit harder to find his way through. Hayden Miller is not going to be walked over, but he makes his way down that start-finish straight. Meanwhile, we do have some replays to bring you now, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way towards the end of lap number 4, and we start off, of course, with the race start. So this is a trip back in time, and this is how it all began for these drivers. We look to William Humphrey, how he got his race underway, and well, in the end, it was a relatively good start. Also, we'll take a little bit look further back as they make their way down towards turn number 1. Now, relatively static start there for our 2 leaders, 2 wide. Humphrey in the end had to worry a little bit about Rhys Saunders looking up his inside, but in the end was able to get clear. Further back, everyone there made their way 2-3 wide for the most part. Most drivers safely on through. We take a look back at the race start. This was further down the order from David Hutchinson's onboard perspective. And, well, as they went green flag racing, some of the field was still making its way out of the final hairpin. So, therefore, they would have started a lot further back. And this would have essentially brought this field to a point whereby they had a lot more speed. That's the natural order of these formation starts. Particularly, we've got a long field. But Hutchinson, therefore, having a much better observational space. And he could look all the way around the outside here as he made his way towards turn number 1. And he picked up several places here and played it very nicely as Max Wheeler went deep there, and Hutchinson had to tuck in behind him in the end. Now, also, we had a bit of an incident there between 2 drivers. This is what happened to Stephen Donnelly at the start of the race, as he made his way through the opening couple of quarters, right in the thick of it in the middle there. Matthew Jordan on one side of him, and then Ime Haslar on the other, and contact with Jordan sent him around. Haslar taking evasive action. Wayne Douglas, sadly, could not quite evade as well, but he was able to stay going. So Stephen Donnelly really was the biggest loser of all that, and a frustrating one. And then later on lap number 1, we had this happen to Kyle Roy from the Open Group M Academy. This was the trip where we went very deep under braking in towards turn number 11. Battling there with Haslar, and in the end just outbroke himself and managed to avoid making contact. But then the 195 Jack Wyborn was slid to him. A small bit of contact there with Nick Stubb by looks of things, but it was a very gentle feather touch tap there. And Max Wheeler tried to go around the outside of the pair of them. Did he do it? Not quite. If he pulled that off, that would be a candidate for move of the season there for Max Wheeler. Good as we missed that the first time round. Nice work for Max Wheeler to go for that and get the place on Wyborn. That was brave. Then we had this happen to Matthew Bacon. And this was Matthew Bacon down into turn number 11. 4 wide there at the apex. Can't say I've ever seen that. And in the end, it went to a 2-2. And that was none other than what was Wayne Douglas being turned and rolling back into the path. And unfortunately there, it gets very scrappy. Bacon collected, Phillips collected, and Mark Johnson as well. I get the feeling that's going to go to the stewards after today. But we also then had this on lap number 2. The big item that you all want to know the answer to. What happened to Milton Tomlinson-Dennis? And here's your answer. Made his way into the corner, looked up the inside of Kotonen, in the end got caught up in the queue. Nobody wanted to stop behind, and I think everyone was just trying to push through, not understanding what was going on, and Tomlinson-Dennis being turned there after he got caught up in the queue. This was the on-board from his perspective. And you can see with Kotonen battling there at first, I think he's thinking to himself, okay, they'll sort it out. Comes in very hot, taps through Kotonen, wants to back off to avoid adding to it, and then unfortunately being tapped there by, I believe, Brandon Dyer, who I think was tapped by Fortis Katios behind him, and Tomlinson-Dennis, unfortunately, in the domino chain, was the one who fell over, whereas everyone else was able to stay pointed. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we head back to your live racing for a bit. As we're here is William Humphrey. He has found his way off camera in the replay footage there, past Hayden Miller. We will get a replay of that in due order, but of course we don't want to deprive you of your live racing action. Rochung and Kyle Roy here right now. They're looking at each other. And I get the feeling that right now Kyle Roy wants to try and make up some of the places he's lost. Understandably, Ross Young as well trying to do the same, albeit Young has yet to gain any, but as they make their way through the left-hander of turn number 8, arrive right now all over the back of him, and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis there as well. And you've got to feel for the driver in that Mercedes AMG, because right now the 192 driver here, well, credit to him for keeping on going. Many drivers at that point I think would have their head in their hands, but not him. He's determined here to make amends. He's got a championship to win, and the championship is made up of 10 rounds, not 1. And he's definitely living by that adage this season so far, and credit to him for doing so, as he continues to chase them. We'll keep an eye on his progress as meanwhile come back towards the top 10, and the foreground of the picture, that is Brandon Dyer under pressure here from Ryan Nickerson, looking around the outside of him. That's not going to work. Meanwhile, we do see Robin Noel Brown here. He's silently stepped his way up the order with Peter Duke behind him. Duke's had a good start to this race, 6 places gained overall, 4 in class. He's gone from 10th to 6th in the pros as they now weave their way through towards the next lap. It's definitely getting very crowded here in the pro class, as we can see in the fact that whilst your top 4 do have a sizable spread in terms of between them, it's 4th place downwards right now that really is the big question mark, with Fotis Katios having Ime Hassalar be the wolf in sheep's clothing in between himself and then Robin Noel Brown, Peter Chu and Matthew Jordan here, and he'll be hoping he can keep Hassalar behind him for as long as possible. But the Heracles Performance Ferrari, I think, wants to get clear of this battle because he wants to go hunting after Nickerson and Dyer, but understanding Nickerson will appreciate his teammate Katios is keeping that elite driver at bay, at least for the time being. But as they all bob and weave between the S's, no real moves happening at the moment. This is the main dirty air section of the lap. They will really just need to try and stay as close as possible, as Nathan Anstis tries to get closer to them as well. And as they make their way down the backstretch, well, now it's all about building up the speed. Speaking of which, building up speed here comes Brandon Dyer and Ryan Nickerson. Nickerson in the Ferrari. He's still looking to the inside. Dyer's just simply saying to him, no, you don't. Here they come past the marshal's post, and Dyer going as defensive as he can under braking, and he'll hold it there. Behind them, Emma Hassalar here looking at to the outside versus Katios, who goes defensive on the inside. Hassalar goes the switch back here. Is he going to be able to get this done? If he can, it will be a huge move. He can't. He's made to wait just that little bit longer, and right now, the Dutchman, I can tell you one thing, he's trying to figure this one out. It is not an easy move to make there versus that McLaren, and well, the Ferrari's got a lot of straight line speed, but it takes so long to get up to that speed in 6th gear, even with the slipstream of that McLaren, and that is what's holding him back, at least for now. But as he makes his way onwards, meanwhile, as they charge their way down, Robin Noel Brown, Peter Duke and Matthew Jordan here, now all playing the game and taking a peek left, right and centre. Jack Wyborn as well, kind of racing line slightly there. I think he's trying to bleed off some of the dirty air and therefore reduce some of his approach speed to the braking zone, knowing that right now he's not really got a way in as Duke's going under pressure. There is Matthew Jordan, snaps up the inside, and well, I think Peter Duke there's going to be saying what we're feeling there. Was there really the space on for Matthew Jordan? I think Jordan tried to get his nose in, but I think that was one of those 50-50 commitment moves there, and I think Duke won't be too pleased about it. You can understand what Jordan was trying to do, but I think they needed to be a little bit more overlap there, because Duke right now, understandably, well, you're thinking that was my line to take, and now out of sorts them to turn number 1. Here comes none other than Mercedes of Jamie Bardwell looking to go inside to outside, and inside again, and Bardwell does get through, but he goes a little bit deep there through turn number 4, and as he does, well, Duke gets back at him, and here comes Max Wheeler as well. Well, what's happened between Peter Duke and his rolls up front leads to enjoying a bigger rivalry now between drivers, and meanwhile off camera we have got a yellow flag for our race leader in the pro class, Reece Saunders. He's only 4 tenths ahead of Mikey Story. That may actually give Story the opportunity to make a move on him. Can we get a look to that? Yes, we can, and here they are, as Saunders right now trying to burn that slowdown penalty as quickly as he can down towards turn number 11, but Story on the inside of him. This is going to change to the pro lead. Here comes Story for the lead of the pro class. He goes a win. Saunders still trying to burn that slowdown. He finally gets rid of it, but Mikey Story has taken over the pro class right now. Can he hold on to it? Villa Cotonan right there. It is the Porsche sandwich for Reece Saunders. The Altitude 3M Esports Drive knows he's still got half of this race to go. There's a lot more work out there that needs to be done. But speaking of things that need to be done, we need to take a look back at some of the moments from earlier on in the race, including the stub and love incident. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. What went wrong between them? Well, the answer is it's on screen. So this was Nick Stubb and Jared Love, and Tim Modig lost it in front of them. I believe that was Modig. In fact, yes, it was. And then Stubb, unfortunately, getting caught out there with none other than what was the Miracle Group M car. I think that was Kyle Roy coming through, and the Vulcan fastened by Glass Tech car and Jared Love coming together. This is the on-board from Jared Love's perspective as he made his way through. So Modig gets it wrong, and Love in the end, the car snaps him as he tries to get it stopped, collects the Ford Mustang, and then Kyle Roy was just an add-on into this instant, and Jared Love's got a face full of Ford there. Well, indeed, when they said Ford versus Ferrari, I don't think this is what anybody was expecting. But meanwhile, this was the Humphrey versus Miller battle that we missed in the meantime, and they were battling their way up towards turn number 1. And this was coming down towards the braking zone here. Miller looking one way, then the other. Went for the switchback here. A lovely setup. And in the end, went a bit too deep. And William Humphrey taking the place back there. And that was essentially the second part of that battle. They did have a bit of an exchange on lap number 5 as well. This is how it started between them, to give you a bit more context. It was the run down the back stretch. And, well, it's how William Humphrey first got into second place, as straightforward as this. And, well, Hayden Miller not fighting it too hard there, opting to stick clear. But we also had this for Peter Duke versus Matthew Jordan. This was definitely one of the more controversial moments on lap number 7, as Peter Duke made his way down towards the braking zone. Matthew Jordan looking up the inside, went all in there, but the overlap perhaps not as much as what Peter Duke expected, and that's why he turned in. Matthew Jordan's argument, of course, will be, was Duke right to turn in on him? And he'll feel he wasn't, given the overlap, but Duke may say otherwise. But again, the stewards will have the camera angles. We only have what's available to us here in the broadcast room. But meanwhile, let's come back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, because there's been plenty of talking bites right now. Well, mostly all of them positive, to be fair. And as Aura tries to carry on, we'll look back to Matthew Jordan. Whilst there may be a small cloud hanging over his head, to be fair, it's not holding back as he chases after Robin Noel Brown. And Fox's Catios right in front of them as well. The fight for full place in the Pro class is here to stay, with Jack Wyborn, an elite driver, wanting to play a little bit of a role in this one if he can. We have a black flag, by the way, for Connor Spree. That will be for instant points. He will be subject to a drive-through penalty that has been awarded on this lap, so therefore he will have to take it by the end of lap number 12, otherwise it will be upgraded into an automatic race disqualification. So therefore he will come into the pitch. We'll see him drop down the order from 24th place. You've got a feel for Spree because qualifying didn't quite go right until the very end, and the race it's definitely not gone right at all. But as Dyer makes his way out of the hairpin, running those lines nice and wide versus the Ferrari of Ryan Nickerson, and that is where the Porsche is stronger. The low-speed cornering ability of the Porsche is what gives it the breathing room versus the Ferrari. Nickerson's Ferrari is good, to be fair, mid-engine rear-wheel drive, but the Porsche, with the weight over the rear axle, can just get the traction quicker. And it's something it's known for, the Porsche 992. Low-speed corners and heavy braking zones are the ultimate combination for this car. Hairpins, you won't find a car that's as quick as a Porsche coming out of it, all things being equal with regards to the drivers. And Dyer right now demonstrating that as he makes his way through the SS sequence. And now all he's got to do is control the narrative through here and make sure that Nickerson has a face full of dirty air. But from there, we come back to Story, Saunders and Katonen. The top 3 of the Pro class here, making their way after Lewis Kenyon. 2 seconds is the gap. And Mikey Story right now in unfamiliar territory. This is the first time this season he has led the race outright in the Pro class. And, well, with Reece Saunders behind, with what was a move made into this corner, assisted by an automated slowdown for Saunders. But to be fair, Story had to be there and close enough to gain on it. And that's all about the art. Well, in the end of Katonen, right now we're thinking, can he play a part? Matthew Jordan looking up the inside of Robin Noel Brown. Meanwhile, into turn 11, goes all in there, all on the brakes of the private in the 86. Does he get it stopped in time? Yes, but Noel Brown goes back around the outside of him there, has to give the space. Jordan still got his nose there. Noel Brown's on the inside into turn number 13. Jordan's going to back out, otherwise there is no hope of him making the corner if he fights that. And in the end, the private of Gas Up Motorsports does exactly that. Now in towards the left-hander, turn number 16 comes Jack Wyborn, gets on the back of them. Behind Mark Hutchinson, we talked about his difficulties earlier on today, but given the fact he started 32nd, he's not doing too bad. Here's Jamie Bardwell there, has to take a slowdown for track limits at turn 14, and immediately Hutchinson will take that place, bringing Max Wheeler along behind. But the Ford Mustang driver has now gained 15 places, gains 2 more, and he will be in contention for what will be that reverse grid for the purposes of our second race of the day. So he's making that steady progress right now as James Howarth also tries to get onto the back of Jamie Bardwell and have an opportunity here trying to squeeze on through, but is he going to be able to? And something tells me the answer is no, not right now. He is going to have to wait a little bit longer. But as we do say hello there to none other than E1 Wood Blue 5. And that's cheering on there, William Humphrey saying, nice overtake, my boy. And I wonder if that might be William Humphrey's father there, or family member. Well, meanwhile, that's elbows out. That's Nickerson versus Brandon Dyer. And here comes Nickerson. He's had enough of rating. It may hassle ours behind as they come up towards turn number 5. 2 wide they go in. Nickerson there on the inside. Surely he's got this done. But Brandon Dyer's fighting back. They make contact. And it's going to be Nickerson sent sliding wide. He just about avoids the barriers, to be fair. But he won't be too pleased about that. And that's going to be a set of tyres there that are definitely going to be scalding hot now. And he's going to need to try and cool them down gradually over the next couple of laps. But goodness me, that could have ended up in tears. It didn't quite in the end. What it ended up instead was an absolute intense battle. And, well, we're definitely going to have to find out exactly how that all started. But Katios now still fighting Brandon Dyer. Dyer there with him. Dyer's not happy right now, and understandably Katios just wants to get clear here. But in the Porsche, Brandon Dyer right now absolutely digging in here. He's made his position. He's going to hold on to it for as long as he can. And Katios there backing off, and I think that's the wise move there. But he's going to try and fight it the outside to turn number 12. He's got his nose in slightly, and with Dyer going deep there, Katios will come back. But Dyer then says, okay, I'm going to do what you can do into turn 13. Try this on for size. And for Katios backs off there 9. There is no way through. As we ride on board, looking back from the Inter-Racing Team driver. And right now, well, Brandon Dyer here, front bumper or no front bumper, he is definitely getting it all in the battles. But as he makes his way onwards, we've got to leave them for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, because back to second place we go. This is overall an elite. And it's Hayden Miller versus William Humphrey. This is part number 3 of their battle. Defends inside is Miller. Humphrey looking around the outside here. And Miller again on the inside makes the same mistake twice. And he's just made to outbrake himself there. I wonder if he's still adjusting to the brakes that Aston Martin. Humphrey knows exactly how good they are. And therefore William Humphrey able to take that place back. Meanwhile, Brandon Dyer has lost out in the end to Katios and to Noel Brown. I think the damage is building up down that back straight, but also in the braking zone. But Noel Brown looking around the outside as Matthew Jordan tries to sneak his way through, but it's contact between Dyer and Brown. Brown gets it pointed straight in the end. Dyer backs off, but he loses 2 places for it. And then suddenly, the field catches up behind. Brian Nicholson right now gets back on the back of all this as well. Nathan Anstis is there. It's all building up to a crescendo, this one. And as they roar the way onwards, Anstis looking one way, then the other. But in the end, they will all have to settle down and go one wide eventually. But these battles right now are absolutely getting crazy out there. And indeed, time is running out in this race. Everyone's patience is running out a little bit right now. And understandably for all these drivers, well, they all just want to make up those last places, particularly when you're fighting inside the top 15 or for the top 15 and that potential prospect to be on that reverse grid. Nobody wants to miss the chance to be on pole position for race number 2, so therefore the elbows are getting out here, but please keep it clean, guys. You've been doing so well so far, but as they make their way out towards turn number 11, I suspect there's going to be more to this, as Robin Noel Brown right now tries to come back at what will be Brandon Dyer as quickly as he can. I think he does clear him at the end, and meanwhile, that's going to be Ryan Nicholson up the inside of Jack Wyborn there. So the Ferrari driver does get ahead for 7th place in the elite class. Now he wants to get past Dyer for 6th place if he can. And you see Anstis and Duke, they're queuing up on this. Hutchinson and Wheeler are here as well. This has created the mother of all trains as they come through. And indeed, for these drivers now, one small mistake could completely rupture this train wide open here. You could suddenly see one driver at the back of it gain several places. And well, they'll all be eager to do that, but nobody wants to get it wrong here, I can assure you of that, because in doing so, it's all going to end up in tears very quickly, because if a car at the front of this group gets it wrong, then everyone is going to have to react as quickly as they can. But down the stretch they come, and Dyer versus Nicholson here, rubbing doors, and indeed the paint being exchanged there. There's going to be plenty of black on the white and plenty of white on the black, and as they make their way through, it'll be yin and yang between them. But behind, Jack Wyborn here tries to make it 3 wide. He gets a better X out of the hairpin compared to what with Brandon Dyer. And now towards turn number 19 they go, and Dyer gets such a good run through 18. As they head up towards the next lap, time is of the essence as they roar the way down, and in towards that braking zone they come. And in the end, will Jack Wyborn having to wait again, but Dyer goes slightly deep, and Wyborn this time is not going to wait. He is going to go for it, but he goes offline. And now Nathan Anstis here looks on the outside, but that's more to bleed the speed as Peter Duke looks at him, and meanwhile Mark Hutchinson and Max Wheeler are looking at this. But we've got Jamie Baldwin, James Howarth in the mix here as well. They are all so close together right now. It is really now biting stuff here as they make the way towards the end of this race in Miami. And keep in mind, we've got another race after this one. It is not over yet, but many of you may be asking, how exactly did this all start? Well, we'll have to hold the phone on that one, because Mark Hutchinson looks up the inside into turn number 8. That's not going to work. The R3M eSports driver trying to be a bit inventive there is racing line, and then realising on such a late apex corner, taking the tight inside line is only going to cost you momentum. But thankfully, Max Wheeler, they're not seeing what happened until it was too late and couldn't react to it. But here they come then, and now it's part number 4 of the Wyborn-Dyer battle, and it's going to be Wyborn up the inside there, Dyer on the outside down towards turn number 11 as they roar the way past our camera. Nathan Anstis, he looks at 1, he looks at 2 almost, and it's not going to quite work, but he puts himself on the inside of Dyer there, and the pro driver right now just wants to get ahead of some of these elite drivers. He wants to break away from the pros behind him. He wants to guarantee a spot inside the top 15 overall. He's on the inside. It's a lovely move from Nathan Anstis, and he just squeezes ahead. If he had been any late on that by a millimetre, let alone a millisecond, he would have been in contact. But what a move there from Nathan Anstis, and Peter Duke also comes through. It upsets Brandon Dyer for turns 14 and 15, and suddenly Duke clears the Porsche, but Dyer's trying to come back at him here. The Corvette right now pushing onwards as Dyer has got a black flag for instant points. He will be subject to a drive through, And I think right now, as much as he's tempted to race, he's got to accept the fact that regardless how much he races now, he is going to be subject to falling down the order, so he's got to let these go. It's so hard as a driver. He's been putting up such a brilliant fight, but for Brandon Dyer, unfortunately, this race does come to an end. Only 4 minutes from the finish line, effectively. He will be back out there, but he'll be all the way down the order. You can see him pull off into the pits. But as they all head on through, back to the Humphrey-Hayden-Miller battle. And my good lord, we've been looking further down the order for so long, to be fair, for good reason. But right now, these two, they are still separated by only 4 tenths a second. It is Humphrey ahead of Miller, and Hayden-Miller right now has got to find a more inventive way. Turn 1 is not the play. He just cannot find the braking zone at turn 1 on that inside line. Meanwhile, William Humphrey just simply looks at him every time and says, well, that's all well and good, but you're going to miss your apex. And down towards turn number 11 they come, and well, Miller, can he get closer anywhere else on the lap where he's able to make the overtake? That's the problem that he is confronted with. But as he continues to try and understand and figure out an answer to the problem, we take a look back at what started the long train of cars. This was the Nicholson and Brandon Dyer battle as they made the way on towards turn number 11. So Dyer got it wrong coming through turn number 17 and 18, and on to 19 he lost all the pace. This enabled Nicholson to look side by side with him, and this is where it all really started. Too wide they went into turn number 1, Nicholson there, but Dyer coming back at him, and in towards turn number 2, neither driver wanted to give way here into 3. That's when they made contact, side-to-side contact. That sent Nicholson out wide there onto the marbles, and then, well, they continued it here. My good lord, too wide. Imre Haslar thought about getting involved, and then thought actually probably best not to. Nicholson went on the inside, and Dyer in the end, well, as they came on through, looked at the inside, that made contact with Nicholson and sent him out very wide there, and well, Brandon Dyer unfortunately losing his front bumper as a result of that, and Imre Haslar then find his way on through, and that's when it all started, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to leave that because you've seen that story, and we come back to your live racer now, because with only 2 laps to go here, it is the battle for second that takes centre stage. Tseard Ploeg has run away a little bit to 3.5 seconds, but to be fair to Ploeg, he has not been running away with this on pace. It has been more due to the fact that Humphrey and Miller have been battling. Their pace, when they're not fighting, is the same as our Acura leader. So therefore, in a different story, you can imagine Ploeg would be in this battle, but he's leading the race. He's been able to create a gap nice and early, and in Sunday, what he's been able to do is make sure he's not in this fight, and that's been the difference here. But who's going to be a second place finisher? Well, William Humphrey right now wants that second place. He really does need it in his championship charge if he wants to get back into that top 3 by the end of today and start to split the Vulcan Motorsports drivers apart. But Hayden Miller has got his own aspirations here as he makes his way on down. Question being asked there from Thomas Fleming, is this top split? It is indeed. Of our 2 splits, this is split A you are tuning into, so your elite and pro drivers, and our quote-unquote bottom split, if you will, but they're not bottom in terms of class, I can tell you that. We do have our split B broadcast in parallel. That's on the SimRacing International YouTube channel, and that is your Premier and also your Evo drivers, but you will see top class action in both broadcasts, no doubt about it, as meanwhile Humphrey right now holding on. Also a quick update on the Pro League battle here as they make their way onwards. Mikey Story, Reece Saunders and Ville Katonen together here. Your top 3 still together, practically separated by the same time gaps that we left them at the best part of what was 4 laps ago. In fact, about 6 laps ago now, if my memory serves me correctly. None of these drivers right now wilting under the pressure of batting so close together, although Mikey Story does seem to be comfortable in that Porsche compared to Reece Saunders' Ford Mustang that doesn't seem to be happy running in that dirty air. Matthew Jordan's picked up a slowdown. He's going very slow there for turns 14 and 15, where he has served the slowdown he's picked up. He'll be safe there from Robin Noel Brown because Noel Brown is a bit too far back to get involved. But that's a bit of an odd story there, but back to the front we come. Flash of headlights there from Hayden Miller. What's he trying to signal to William Humphrey? Is it all Morse code or is it just a distraction? Well, coming on board here of Hayden Miller. Right now the headlights won't be flashing anymore. Instead, what he'll be focusing on is the battle through these corners. They come in towards turn 4. He's going to look to the outside here for turn number 5. Does he try and go all the way around? This is going to be bold if he does so. In the end, no, there's not enough space to do so. He makes Humphrey go offline, but in the end he finds there's only one line through here and he taps through Humphrey's car but backs off immediately. In towards turn number 7 they go. Miller looking up the inside. Is he going to dive all the way in? He is. He's going to go for it here. Does he get it stopped in time? Yes, he does. But how much time does he cost himself on quarter exit? And the answer is a lot, because suddenly now William Humphrey will build up that speed very quickly. But Miller went for it. Humphrey saw it was coming, therefore left the door as wide open as possible and said to him, okay, if you dare. But what has Humphrey got in return here? Well, here we go then as they make their way down towards turn number 11. Humphrey looks to the outside. Is it a feint? Will he switch back to the inside? No. He's overlapping now. He's got to go all the way round. Front bumper comes off the car. I don't know why, but as they make make the way in towards turn number 11. Well, right now he's on the outside to the inside of 12. They're too wide on in. Humphrey using all the road on the red-off area there. He's allowed to do so. 2-1, they come through this contact. They touch in towards turn number 13, and Miller just gets in, but it's a rub between the two of them. I don't think there's any malice meant in that, but they'll make the way through. Humphrey sideways over in turn 15. The rear of the car just slipping loose under weight transfer, and they'll make the way down the back straight here. Well, your leader, 6 seconds up the road. We will come to him shortly to see him to the checkered flag, but right now Miller and Humphrey, they are so close here. But if Humphrey can dive from that far back, he's 4 tenths back right now. He'll be 3 tenths back by the time they get to the turn 17 braking zone. It's going to be the mother of all sense here, but Miller will know it's probably coming. That's why he immediately goes defensive there. Humphrey switches back, he goes all in, and he goes inside, but does he get it stopped? No, he does not. Miller takes it back, and as Miller moves into second, Tseard Ploeg, meanwhile, moves to the checker flag, and it's another win for the Vulcan Motorsports 1 driver here, starting the day off well in Miami. Hayden Miller will come home to make it a 1-2 for Vulcan Motorsports, with William Humphrey 3rd place. He styles it out across the finish line. Lewis Kenyon takes 4th, and Mikey Story, 5th overall, takes his first win of the season there in 5th place in the lead of the Pro class, ahead of Reece Saunders and Villa Catone, who complete the Pro podium. Ime Hassalar comes on home in a very lonely 8th place. That's 5th of your elite drivers. Huge points for him, and it's his best result of the season. Fortis Catchers comes on through 4th in the Pro class in the end for Split Straight Esports, and a Matthew Jordan, and then it'll be Robin Noel Brown, who finishes a length just ahead of Ryan Nickerson, Jack Wyborn, Nathan Anstice, and Peter Duke in the end. He takes your pole position for race number 2 with 15th overall and 8th in the Pro class, and a Mark Hutchinson and Johnny Bardwell. And then it'll be Max Wheeler in 18th, head of James Howard, who calls things down in 19th place, head of Mark De Vries. And then we'll have 21st Wesley Van Rens, who came all the way from the back of the field to 21st, head of Tim Modig. And then Kyle Roy, Mark Johnson, and Ross Young will complete your top 25, with then Jared Love coming over in 26th place, just behind. And then it will be Danny Phillips, a bit of a distance back, 12 seconds off of them, as he makes his way towards the timeline here for Dexterous Motorsports Command, knowing that he started in 33rd, he's finished 27th. This circuit doesn't seem to be suiting him or his McLaren, but the 191 driver has made progress ahead of Nick Starr with that unfortunate incident between him and Jared Love, and then Adam Baker completes your top 30 there. We've still got a couple more drivers to come through. David Hutchinson was 29th. Stephen Donnelly comes home 31st after his late incident, with none other than what was one of his rivals coming through turns 3, 4 and 5. Frank Buyerson in the end, in a bit of a quiet race, takes 32nd, and he will be your last lead lap finisher, ladies and gentlemen. But goodness me, what a race number 1. And well, as we get a 5-minute breather before we go to race number 2, we're going to need one. My good Lord, that's 30 minutes here at Miami. And well, I said at the start of this broadcast, we expected overtakes to be limited due to the dirty air. I tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, you could see our drivers were struggling in that dirty air, but they were not struggling to fight each other hard. Well, here are those race results, subject to stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, Tseard Ploeg, your winner for Vulcan Motorsports 1, took pole position, and in the end, working with Hayden Miller on the opening couple of laps, he held the lead and then was able to break away, as Miller in the end had to focus on finishing second. He did so just in the end, battling hard with William Humphrey and going for an all-or-nothing move into turn number 8, and he made it work. William Humphrey came back at him, and it was that brilliant 2-wide for turns 11, 12 and 13, where Miller was in the inside to the pivotal corner of turn 13 and got the job done. William Humphrey third then for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, and understandably now looking to the next race and thinking, right, if I can't win race 1, I need to win race number 2. He doesn't want his rivals from Vulcan Motorsports to be taking all the glory. Lewis Kenyon finished 4th there for Vulcan Motorsports 2, not on the pace of the top 3, but a solid drive. This is what we know him from. That's why he's your championship leader, in the fact he doesn't have the pace necessarily, but he's got the consistency. Mikey Story, first pro win of the season, 5th place there. What a drive from the Dexterous Motorsports Kamara driver. Making that move on Reece Saunders for the Altitude 3 of Esports Shine. Known it was a move and a slowdown that cost him dear, and he was ahead of Villa Catone for Beowulf Racing Team, who held on to 3rd place and made sure not to risk it and secure very good points, which he needs to move his championship forward. Ime Hassalar drove a brilliant race there to take his best result of the season, 5th in the elite class, and avoided the drama and just snuck through for Heracles Performance. Head of Fortis Katios with an absolute lightning start to the race, as he always does. 4th in the pro class, and he couldn't make any more progress, and in the end the Split Straight Esports driver had to put up his defences because Matthew Matthew Jordan was there and took 10th in the end, the privateer. Outside your top 10, Robin Noel Brown, best the rest in the length for GPX SimSport Xenon, ahead of Ryan Nickerson. The split track esports driver there, 12th place, battling hard, and in the end it didn't quite work out, but he was able to hold off Jack Wyborn in the battle of Ferrari versus Ford. The MRC 495 driver also had UK SimRacing Norris's Nathan Anstis to contend with, and Anstis there taking a season best performance in the pro class with what was a 7th place there in his sprint race performances, that is. Peter Duke as well coming on through in the end, and he won't be happy the fact he lost some places midway through the race in that contact with Matthew Jordan, but he has earned himself pole position with that 15th place for race number 2 that's coming up shortly for DC Motorsport, so there's always a silver lining. Mark Hutchins had just missed out, 16th in the end, only 2 tenths behind at the finish line, and he was only in turn 7 tenths ahead of Jamie Bardwell. Max Wheeler took 18th place in the end for Phoenix Racing Blue behind his sister team driver, ahead of James Howarth meanwhile for Dexterous Motorsport Zemix, and Mark DeVries completed your top 20 for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. Outside that top 20, meanwhile, it was a difficult start to the day in qualifying for Wesley Van Rens, but he found his way through for 9PP Racing, or 9 Pegasus Panthera, to take what was 21st. Head of Team Modig, the sim coach driver, who unfortunately got ejected through the S's in the early stage of the races, and therefore needed to find a way back. Carl Roy from Miracle Group M Academy as well, having a difficult start to his race, and therefore race number 2 is all going to be about recovery. Mark Johnson just behind there in 24th place for Axis Sim Sports Y, with a relatively quiet race, but a mid-race incident we didn't catch on camera is why he's finished outside the top 20. Ross Young took 25th there ahead of Jared Love, where DC Motorsport tried getting the car back out there after his altercation with Nick Stubb. A huge incident and a very nasty one between the two of them. Both drives okay from what I understand, but indeed both pinned to the wall coming out to turn number 4, and well, they'll be looking for a much more straightforward race number 2. Danny Phillips was 27th there for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, ahead of Nick Stubb, the Vulcan Fasters Ford Mustang, under repair work right now and getting ready for its second race a day. Now it's David Hutchison and Adam Baker who completed the top 30. Outside that top 30, Stephen Donnelly. He was looking very quick after his impressive qualifying performance, but in the end, a bit of contact coming through the S's early on sent him down the order. He finished ahead of Frank Buyerson, and with Wayne Douglas, the first lap down driver there in 33rd, and then it was 2 laps down to Brandon Dyer, with Milton Tomlinson-Dennis sadly retiring from the race with 6 laps to go. Connor Spree the same after his black flag with 8 laps to go, and Matthew Bacon, our earliest retirement there, not able to complete more than what was a grand total of 3 laps. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another race to come. We are not too far away from going racing once again. And, well, given how intense this race number 1 was, I'll say this to you now. If you haven't stepped away and quickly grabbed yourself a top-up of whatever drink you're having this evening, alternatively, you got yourself some snacks and you're feeling a bit peckish, do so now. Because in 30 seconds' time, we'll be making our way to the grid. And when we do, well, it'll be the gridding procedure and the formation lap. And after that, we will be going racing once again for another 30 minutes of action. And if race number 1 is any barometer, race number 2 is going to be absolutely pouring with battling action. There's going to be no rain here, but our drivers are definitely making it rain when it comes to the excitement here in the US of A. So without further ado, let's make our way to the grid and see how they all line up for race number 2. And so, here we go once again, ladies and gentlemen, and this is how they all line up for the second of our sprint races here in round number 4 of Split A's Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11, brought to you by SimRacing International from the Miami International Autodrome. Peter Duke takes the reverse grid pole position for the top 15 for DC Motorsport. He is your pro and overall pole sitter. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by UK SimRacing Norris's Nathan Anstis. Both drivers impressing in the late stage of the race and gradually growing in their positions. Jack Wyborn as well, looking quick for MRC 495. Can he take that lead pole position? Can he convert it into a podium or a top 5? He'll have the company of Ryan Nickerson for Split Track Esports. And understandably, the Canadian driver, after a very elbows-out race number 1, I suspect right now he'll have put the pads on those elbows and be ready to go once again. Robin Noel Brown takes 5th place in this grid for GPX SimSport Xenon, ahead of Matthew Jordan. The privateer right now looking set once again and looking very feisty in race 1, but indeed he'll now be keeping an eye on the fact that his rivals will all know what to expect to him and he'll know what to expect to them. Fotis Katios of Split Track Esports starts 7th in this race. He is none other than your 5th of the pro drivers. Could he be leading it by the end of lap number 1? Never say never. Ime Haslar begins the day in 8th place here for Heracles Performance after a very impressive race number 1. Can he move forward once again? Can he take his first podium of the season perhaps? Villa Katonen starts 9th for Beowulf Racing Team ahead of Reece Saunders for Altitude 3M Esports. Both of those drivers looking good, but not as impressive as Mikey Story in the end for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, who just edged them both out in race 1. Lewis Kenyon takes 12th place there for Vulcan Motorsports 2. Smooth and consistent, not as quick as he appears behind him. However, that consistency could prove pivotal here, with William Humphrey just behind 13th on this grid for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing. And it'll be Hayden Miller, who starts in 14th for Vulcan Motorsports 2, and your race 1 winner for Tseard Ploeg for Vulcan Motorsports 1. He absolutely delivered in the first race. Can he deliver again, knowing he's got 14 cars between him and victory? Mark Hutchinson just missed out on the top 15 inverted grid, but 16th place is where he starts there for Altitude Freedom Esports. He seems to be getting the hang of Miami, but can he move that Ford Mustang forward? If not, Jamie Bardwell will be looking to pick up the pieces for Phoenix Racing Red, as well as sister team driver of Max Wheeler there in 18th in his Audi. James Howarth starts 19th, the Dexterous Motorsports MX driver. It's not quite gone forward so far in race number 1 as much as you would like. Can he pick up the pieces in this one? If not, Mark DeVries may do the same. The SimRacing Team Lowlands driver, who in the end having a reasonable race 1. Can he move forward even more? Starting in 21st place, Wesley Van Rens for 9 Pegasus Panthera Racing. He had a relatively quiet race. He stayed out of trouble. Meanwhile, Tim Modig found a lot of trouble early on, the Swede, but he's still smiling. I suspect right now he'll be keen to get going once again. Kyle Roy, watch out for him in the 24 Corvette, the Miami Group M Academy driver. He had a disastrous start, but he'll be hoping this one, because he's so far back, he'll be able to surprise everyone by coming through the field. Mark Johnson starts 24 for Axis SimSport Y, hoping he doesn't get blighted by another incident here. Ross Young starts 25th for Dexterous Motorsports MX, ahead of DC Motorsports Jared Love, and then it'll be Danny Phillips 27th for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, ahead of Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech's Nick Stubb, who's got it all to recover. David Hutchison begins this one in 29th for Axis SimSport X, ahead of LS Racing's Adam Baker, who'll be looking to avoid the slowdowns. And outside that top 30, on row number 16, it's Stephen Donnelly for JSD Racing, ahead of DNR Esports' Frank Buyerson, with Wayne Douglas 33rd for DC Motorsport Privateers, ahead of Brandon Dyer for Inter Racing Team, and then Milton Tomlinson-Dennis for World of Racing for STR Esports. He starts on the very back of the grid, and indeed has got all the work to do, although I am hearing in my ear, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mercedes has got a technical issue, and it isn't going to make it into this race, or at least he's not on this grid. If he's going to be starting, he'll be starting from the pit lane. Connor meanwhile, he will be on the grid at 36th for Vulcan Motorsports 2, and Matthew Bacon in the end at 37th, the Sim Coach driver. From the back of the field, he completes the starting order. 9, the world is his oyster in front, but he's got to go seize it. So that's how they all start, ladies and gentlemen, and we are on the backstretch already. We have taken our time making our way down through that grid, and our drivers are taking their time making their way down towards what will be the final hairpin. But as they do, look at that field, 2 wide all the way through. 18 rows of cars with Tomlinson-Dennis's absence. But I'll tell you one thing right now, whilst we will be missing him, we are excited for the 36 drivers who do go racing. And as they all make the way in towards turn 17, it's over to Peter Duke. It's been a long time since I've said this. It is over to the DC Motorsport driver to take us away for 30 minutes of racing action. And it's lights out, and away we go here for race number 2 as 30 minutes ticks away, and Peter Duke leads the field down towards turn 1. It's a good start for the Corvette driver, but Nathan Astis right now at risk of being swallowed up here by Jack Weibel as they all come through. 2, 3 wide. Oh, that's a big squeeze of Mikey Story there in the mid-pack. I think there was a little bit of hot temperament from William Humphrey. And well, India, I think there were 2 cars either side and 1 in the middle, and they all squeezed each other. It's got a bit sideways there for a couple of drives further back. 2 cars parked together. I think that's Mark Johnson and Frank Buyerson have had a coming together. We'll understand what's happened between them. There's a big flash of lights there for Mikey Story. He's not happy about something, and indeed there's going to be a bit of a tail that we'll take a look back at shortly. But meanwhile, Hayden Miller, he's already making progress up to 11th place. He fights with William Humphrey, staying ahead right now. These two back each other already as Nathan Astis goes very sideways, and in the end he just gets it stopped, and now he's got to wait for the whole field to come through. That's painful. But his patience right now is absolutely pivotal. No! And the patience in the end doesn't pay off, as that's going to be a McLaren into the side of him with Danny Phillips. And Danny Phillips, unfortunately, the 2-1 as Brandon Dyer's got round. Dyer's got round on the run of the back straight. I suspect there's contact between them. It's all got a bit peaked on for a few drives there. All wrong, as we say, not using London slang. And as they make the way onwards, well, right now, plenty of these drivers are having a lot of difficulty towards the back of the field. But the front of the field, meanwhile, well, Peter Duke and Jack Wyborn are the ones right at the front, with Ryan Nicholson, meanwhile, then queuing up the rest. But Nicholson right now has got a long queue of cars behind us. That's too wide. No way is Reece Saunders going for it. He's going to go for it. My good Lord, and they make it all through. But in the end, it doesn't quite work out. But Saunders and Fontes Cachios, that is the immovable object to the unstoppable force. And in the end, Fontes Cachios makes himself the unstoppable force there. He does move the immovable object to Reece Saunders. And my good Lord, how on earth they gave each other enough space through there? Well, credit where it's due to both of them. As behind, we've got Hayden Miller and Tseard Ploeg squaring off there. The 2 Vulcan Motorsports driver. But looking one way, then the other is Imi Hassalam. Haslar trying to go around the outside of both pro drivers. Under braking, that's Hayden Miller coming in like a rocket. Oh no! He gets it under braking, and Mikey Story, who was already squeezed at turn number 1, at turn number 17, his front bumpers come undone. And now Mark Hutchinson says, okay, I'm coming through. Story, meanwhile, refuses to budge an inch, let alone a mile. As they go on to lap number 2, well, there's been plenty, but it's not over yet. Free wide into turn 1, no way! Is Zoe Haslar going to go for a free wide? He tries it, but in the end, Katios outbrakes both Saunders and Haslar. Oh, and Haslar goes sliding loose. Hot tyre temperatures here. He's pushing hard early on. Those tyres are not gripping up as expected. I think he's overheated them when they were still cold, and therefore that's going to take all the grip away from them early on. And that Ferrari is going to be slithering around right now and not doing its best impersonation of Randy Orton, but instead doing its best impersonation there of a snake that's definitely not awake. But as they make the way around, meanwhile, Jack Wyborn has taken the lead off of Peter Duke. That's been off camera. That's been in towards turn number 1 at the start of the lap. But the point being that these two have swapped place overall, but not in class. Wyborn now your elite leader versus your pro leader, Duke. But Duke right now has got a gold opportunity here to just try and run away. Then it's Ryan Nixon and Matthew Jordan. Then it's Fotis Katios, who's in 5th place right now, ahead of Reece Saunders, with him and Haslar moving onwards behind as they all make the way on down. Then we do have none other than William Humphrey ahead of Tseard Ploeg and Villa Katonen complete your top 10, with Hayden Miller in 11th place after his altercation at turn number 17. Then it's Mikey Story. My goodness, Mikey, you are doing everything you can to hold on here in a car that right now I suspect is being held together. If they could put some tape on it, they would, because the Dexterous Motorsports Quad Porsche has been bruised, it's been beaten, but it has not been broken right now. And Mikey Story keeping it together with Jamie Bardwell, Mark Hutchinson breathing down his neck, and James Howarth here just outside the top 15 in 16th place. He wants his role to play in this one as we jump on board with the number 54 driver. But corner exit there, understandably, in a long train of cars, he can't get the power down, and it naturally creates what is the concertina gap that we see there of 6 tenths between himself and the car in front and 6 tenths of the car behind. But making his way on down right now, Howarth there taking a look up the inside. He's trying to see what's going on in front of him as they all come down. That is a big queue of cars there, and as quick as they're so far away, they suddenly get very close, and that is why you don't want to run right on the back of the next car in the order, because one car breaks slow into a corner and they all queue up, and you're seeing that with Mikey Story and Jamie Bardwell here as they come down towards turn 1. Bardwell goes inside. He's not backing off his Bardwell. Story defends the outside. Bardwell decides to go in, but that Porsche is never going to be beaten on the brakes, and Mikey Story there, he knows how late he can brake into the ABS on that car. And right now Bardwell, well, he's missing a bit of front bumper as well. They are all pushing each other to the absolute limit. They all want to get on through in the limited overtaking zones that are presently available, but understand it's all about who wants to risk it elsewhere on the lap. Robin Noel Brown taking the cheeky peeks inside of Max Wheeler meanwhile, but he goes offline, goes onto the marbles. That's going to be a big cut. As he goes to rejoin, it does well to try and avoid scuppering Jared Love's line as best he possibly can. Although Love did have to sweep aside a little bit there, but understandably Noel Brown couldn't go anywhere else at that point. In fact, you can't just blunt all the momentum out the car. And well, David Hutchinson and Carl Roy behind watch it on here, but you see all these drivers trying to push on with Connor Spree flashing his lights, saying to Noel Brown, do you mind letting me go, please? And I think there's going to be a few choice words there for Noel Brown as they make their way onwards. But meanwhile, this is Matthew Jordan up the inside of the lead of the pro class versus Peter Duke, but there is no way Duke's backing off out of this as they come through, and these two had a little bit of words in race number 1, and Duke immediately there saying to him, no, we're not going to have this happen again. And right now Duke digging in deep here in the two cars that look similar, but it's the Corvette ahead of the Ferrari, and then Emma Haslar and Reece Saunders catching up behind. And well, ladies and gents, we've got some replays to bring you of what's happened at the start of the race, but I don't think we're going to get a chance to for some time here because there's so much action going on. Bear with us, we will try to squeeze them in when we can, but understand if we can't. But as they make their way down the back stretch here, well, here comes Jordan looking very quick in that Ferrari. Duke's going to be on the outside here. Can Duke use a little bit of switchback here? Can he find a way to counter Jordan's presence? The answer is no. He tries to outbrake him instead, but it's going to put him deep. That's what Jordan wants. He wants to get into Duke's head, but Peter Duke there he holds the inside line in towards turn 18. He carried the momentum here in towards turn 1. Then we side by side heading on to the next lap. On to lap number 4 they go. Your two elite leaders now breaking away, but down towards the opening braking zone they go, and Duke here defending, and Jordan right now can't go over the switchback there. Duke stops him right in his tracks, puts the car right in the middle of the road and says, what you going to do? But these two absolutely, you can feel it from both of their cars right now. They have got a rivalry to settle here, and right now the stakes could not be higher. It's not for 5th in pro, it's not just for the podium, it's for the win in the class, but they've got a long way to go in this race. And are they fighting too hard? Are they risking pushing themselves back to likes of Reece Saunders, who has come through the starting field to move up into 3rd in pro class already? Some would definitely say yes, they probably are, but right now I don't think they're thinking about the bigger picture. They're thinking about the here and now, what's right in front of them, and can we really blame them for it? No, we can't, as they make their way down that back stretch. But further back, Fotis Katios on the back of several cars here. And looking on the back of Hayden Miller, and Tseard Ploeg and Miller have found their way past him over the last couple of laps, but Katios here trying to stay with the Vulcan Motorsports driver. I think this is all about saying to Hayden Miller, look, I want to ride your backside, but I need you to get a move on here. The Split Track Esports driver from Greece, he has so much pace in the opening 15 minutes of any race feature, or alternatively, what is sprint, as we see there Mikey Story at the inside of Villa Katonen, taking the 5th place in Pro Class back there, and Story right now on a redemptive drive here after being knocked down the order. Story doing everything he can to make his way through, and Katonen really playing passive here, but I would understand the Beowulf Racing Team driver. I think he's come into this round with one philosophy in mind: pick up the points first, worry about the big point later, and he's really playing it smart here. He knows that to win a championship you've got to build foundations, and he needs to create some new foundations at the moment. So the first couple of rounds they've given, but they've also taken from him. Back to the front, Jack Wyborn defended versus Nicholson. Here's Nicholson looking around the outside. Wyborn goes defensive. Then we come back. Saunders versus Humphrey versus none other than Tseard Ploeg. Ploeg there looking up the inside of him. But right now, the pro driver in 3rd place of the class. I think he wants to let this go gradually, but he wants these elite drivers to get a move on. It's very difficult here because they're not fighting for points. They're fighting for overall position and the right to chase down more points in their respective classes. But you've got to try and avoid tripping over each other if you can. As meanwhile, Hayden Miller now closes up, and Peter Duke now has what is a train of 10 cars. He's leading here for 3rd place overall, but he only wants 1 place. It's Pro, and it's the win. But as they all come through further back as well, let's not forget we've got fighting outside the top 10, ladies and gentlemen. And there we see Nick Stubb ahead of David Hutchinson and Adam Baker, who goes side by side through turns 1 and 2. And that's going to be Carl Roy around the outside. Roy being smart with this. He sees that Baker's offline and just says, right, well, if he can't carry the momentum, I'll do it for him. And now here comes Matthew Bacon looking up the outside in towards turn number 5. Is that going to work? No, it's not, but he is getting inventive. Mark Johnson's on the back of this. Then you've got Danny Phillips. Then you've got Frank Buyerson. They are all looking left, right and centre around each other right now. And everywhere you look, there's some absolutely incredible fighting. As David Hutchinson having a slow run there for turn number 8. Car part sideways. That was none other than Max Wheeler. Wheeler's gone round at the corner. That spited him in qualifying. And in the end, where it's gone wrong for Wheelers, we've got a car going slowly as well. Who is that dragging the feet? It's James Howarth going slowly. Has there been contact between Howarth and Wheeler? I suspect there might be. All turns in, they both quick steady, got it wrong in the same corner. Peter Duke, meanwhile, has dropped from the lead of the Pro Class. He's suddenly fallen down. He drops all the way down. They all jump up the inside of him into turn 14. You can't be doing that, my good lord. And Duke right now understanding, I think, feeling as though he's literally a punching bag here as he makes his way through the low speed sector. He's been relegated all the way down, and as he brings it back together, the rock stops at first as Katios, he says, but Katios right now trying to come back at him here down the back straight, and as they make the way onwards, my goodness, we are going to have to see what happened there shortly. In this long line of cars right now, it's absolutely what would be heretical to break away, but as they come down towards turn number 17, Katios on the inside, he sends it all in, Duke turns in, but knows he's there, and Indian has to give the space, and Lewis Kenyon sees the doors open, squeezes one in, flashes headlights, and says to the Corvette driver, do you mind? And right now, I think Peter Stewart will be signed under his visor. Yes, I do very much mind, thank you very much, as they get ready to go towards turn number 1. And Peter Duke, of course, drawing both his simulator experience and also his real-life racing experience here to know when to stop. And as he goes up the inside, Lewis Kenyon now has no answer. He didn't expect Duke to go for that. You could see it in the body language of the Porsche. Perhaps he's stopping at the apex, thinking he got it done. And suddenly Duke's just there and says to him, right, I'm not letting you through. But behind, Villa Katonen and Mikey Story are queuing up on this. And Mark Hutchinson's looking up the inside of Katonen into turn 5. That's not going to happen for now. But what is going to happen for now is we are going to take a look back at some of the big moments of this race, and rather than looking back right at the race start, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start off by looking at what happened to Mark Johnson on lap number 1. So this was Johnson down in towards the opening corner, and well, the X6 wide driver in the end looked to have a good start there in a 4 diagonal wide, and unfortunately collected there with the car in Nick Stubb, sent him sideways, and in the end, unfortunately blocking Frank Buyerson, who could go forward, so Buyerson having to stop with him. We had this for Ross Young only moments later. This way it went very wrong for Ross Young, I believe, in towards turn number 5, and well, he made his way in towards the left-hander. Rear of the car just slid loose there, cold tyres, and as easy as that, it came through and into the barrier, so it went wrong for him. We also had something similar for Brandon Dyer, but we then come on to lap number 2, and this was Robin Noel Brown. The GP towards Xenon driver, making his way in towards turn number 5, and well, the corner's caught out several drivers here. Rear of the car completely coming loose, and into the barrier there for Robin Noel Brown, and well, completely turned around. And then we had this for Fortis Katios on lap number 3. And this was Katios of Split Track Esports looking one way then the other in battling with Reece Saunders. Saunders trying to make the move, and in the end, under braking into turn number 11, Saunders said, right, I'm going for it. And Katios just went deep. A small tap preceded it, but did that precede him into the braking zone, I wonder? Well, that's a story for another time. That might go to the stewards, that one. And then we did have this for Peter Duke only moments later. What exactly went wrong for Peter Duke? That's the question. And here's the answer, ladies and gentlemen. This was Peter Duke dropping down the order. Now, Duke was making his way down towards turn number 11, battling with Matthew Jordan, so it wasn't a slowdown. Jordan was on his inside, and as he made his way into that braking zone for turn number 11, what went wrong? It was a free wide. Imma Haslar made it free wide here, so it's a good thing we caught this on replay. Haslar got through, Duke backed off, and then William Humphrey went up the inside, Tseard Ploeg went up the inside. They all just decided to pile on the poor 77. Ploeg went around the outside in the Acura, but he couldn't quite get it done. Duke was then boxed in slightly with Humphrey. Ploeg dived back up the inside. Duke went a little bit deep there with the car settled, and then Miller came through, Saunders came through, and then Katios went for it, but he couldn't find any more room at the end, and that explains what exactly happened between them all. And goodness me, well, Peter Duke in there, no slowdown, just in the wrong place at the right time to be mauled by the drivers around him. And well, right now we return to all your live races action. We're still 17 minutes of the final lap left on the clock, ladies and gentlemen. We have got a long way to go in this race. It doesn't sound like long, but for these drivers right now, it will be an eternity of battling, let alone when we are on 60-minute races. This 30-minute race right now, it has definitely got plenty of stories and chapters in it. But oh, there's contact! That's Jimmy sent sliding through, almost collecting there, Lewis Kenyon to the barrier. I think that was contact there with Mikey Story, and Duke's car is in pieces. And well, that's going to be a total of hits for Peter Duke. And I don't believe his luck. After leading for quite some time versus Matthew Jordan, he's gone down, he's got around, and right now it's going to be more than a frown. When he gets out the car, he'll be absolutely fuming at that. But credit where it's due to for the fight he did put on. As Mark Hutchinson picks up a slowdown there, you can see him serving it as he drives off racing line. And well, meanwhile, from then we've got to figure out the fact we've got two leaders here who are very lonely leaders at the moment. This is Nickerson versus Wyboard. And whilst everything's been absolutely kicking off further back down the order, these two meanwhile, well, their story has pretty much been, right, get to the front of the field. Now just drive together and not really annoy each other too much. I think both drivers as well, to be fair, are very equally matched. I think there is more to just the fact they're working together, but the fact they've got a 4-second gap to Imma Haslar at the moment says something. But we have just been informed that Heracles Performance Drivers just picks up the fastest lap of the race. Nixon there takes a lot of curb at turn number 4's entry, and as a result it just unsettles the car a little bit, but Haslar is pushing right now. That last lap, he was a second quicker than the pair. If Haslar can keep this up, could he potentially bring up his first win of the season in the elite class? That would be such a huge performance here. Indeed, it would mean that the diversity of winners we have seen so far this season only increases more and more. As they come through turn 7-8 right now, these two just focus on their races and try not to make an error here. But those errors are very easily made on the circuit that is not forgiving. But I can tell you what's not forgiving as well, what happened for Peter Duke in his race history. And here's a replay, ladies and gentlemen. So down towards turn number 11 they came. Mikey Story cut to the inside by looks of things. Into that braking zone. Duke came across there, and into that braking zone, contact between the two of them, and it sent Duke out. This was the onboard from Mikey Story's perspective to explain what he saw. So he'll cut to the inside, and then Duke, I believe, starts to come across. Yes, he does. Well, now that's going to be two opinions there for the drivers. Story will argue that Duke came across in the braking zone. Duke will argue, meanwhile, he was right to, and that Story in the end did not change perhaps his line before the braking zone, but it's going to come down to when they came onto the brakes respectively and how late they both moved or positioned themselves in there. You can see where Story was committed to, you can see what Duke was trying to do, but that's up to them and the stewards, ladies and gentlemen. Let's come back to the racing live on your air, but unfortunately for Peter Duke, it is a race that has definitely gone backwards to the wall, and I don't think we're going to be seeing that Corvette back out there anytime soon until they get it repaired. But from there, we're coming back then to Hayden Miller and Matthew Jordan. Miller up the inside here at Jordan, and well, Jordan, your pro leader right now, lets the elite 6th place man go as he comes out of the hairpin, but not without a little bit of a hustle here coming through turns 18 into 19. Reece Saunders just behind, and Saunders wants that lead off of him right now after missing out on the win in race number 1 of the pros due to slowdown and Mikey Story's confidence. Well, right now Saunders looking to the inside. Jordan covers him off. There's contact between the two, and it sends Jordan sliding across the front there of Hayden Miller, and well, Reece Saunders tapping the Ferrari on the back there, but there's more angles than just what we saw in that camera between them. And that's going to send Jordan all the way down, and now Saunders has got Fotis Katios behind him, and here comes the man who none other than Jordan Heppel is cheering on, and he's cheering on the Split Strike Esports guys there. We say hello to Jordan in the YouTube chat, and we also do say hello there to Soho Osir, who's been enjoying the broadcast so far, and also to Edson 96 and Mac Watkins. But right now, let's focus on what's going on, and here comes Katios up the inside. He's doing what Miller did to Humphrey at the end of race number 1. He gets it stopped to the apex, and Saunders turns in, only to find a face full of McLaren there. And here comes Lewis Kenyon right now. Kenyon's going to split the two pro drivers. And this is not what Rhys Saunders wants. He does not want Kenyon to stick his nose into this, but he does. And Kenyon now, will he get ahead of Katios in towards turn number 11? Katios here, surely he's got to defend versus Kenyon here. The threat around that Porsche up the inside. I don't think he's going to have an answer. Here comes Lewis Kenyon. He just simply says to Katios, I'm going for it. Saunders says, I'm coming for it too. And as they go onto the brakes, Katios is past there. Rhys Saunders literally plants the car in front of him and just says to him, right, deal with that. And what does Katios have to do? Well, right now he rides at the back of his rival in front as we jump on board here, making the way towards turns 14 and 15, and the Greek driver right now chasing after the Briton. And well, both these drivers, they are both aces in their game of battling, I can tell you that. But Katios has just not got the best run out of turn number 16. That's going to cost him so much momentum. Meanwhile, back to the front, our two leaders, they're pushing each other along. But what was bump drafting has now moved to battling, because it's Whitebourne looking to the inside with Nicholson trying to go all the way around the outside of him. Can he get it done? No, he can't. So I'm playing up the inside of William Humphrey and try to defend for that full place position. Humphrey turns in, rubs the side of the Acura, and Ploeg will take that place for now. He does move up into full place, and indeed he got ahead down the back straight and was then defending the position afterwards, but Humphrey with him again. But William Humphrey has got to be patient. He's got to use the Acura driver, because he's got to think to himself, the car in front of him is a very sensitive car in its rear tyres. It is a very challenging car to get right, and if he can keep that in mind and he can keep over the back of Ploeg, he can pressure him later on in the race and potentially get him to overheat those rear tyres, which at this track there is a high risk of doing it in any car, let alone the Acura. But if he does, he might just be able to get back in there. So Humphrey's not going to give up yet. He's got to try and stay with the man who's now got to pick his way past 3 more cars, and that in itself is a big consideration. But meanwhile, come back to Kyle Roy, trying to make it too wide versus David Hutchinson as he looked to the move there through turn number 1. Couldn't quite find it, and now has to tuck in behind. But it's definitely Roy who's on a mission here, trying to recover after the difficulties of race number 1. We ride on board here, looking out the front windshield of the Scotsman's car, but he's all over the back of Hutchinson like a bad rash. You can see, look at the confidence that Roy has on the car in the way he's positioned it right now. Dirty air does affect this a little bit, and that's why he's taking more leading lines. But Roy right now, despite the fact that he's looking much more rigid compared to what is the sweeping rear of that Ford Mustang, Roy right now, he's got the pace, he can deploy it, but the problem is he's got to find a way to get past that V8 Mustang. And the thing is, V8 and V8 here, it's 5.5 litres versus 5 of them, and well, that Ford Mustang on the balance of performance has the better straight line speed, where the Corvette is stronger in the turns. We're coming down to the brains over turn number 11. More on the brakes here. Roy definitely looking a lot quicker, as that's going to be Hutchinson going a little bit deep. He's offline, but Roy's too close. Can he sweep his way on the inside? Here he can. He's going to put him on the outside. Turn 13. Hutchinson goes defensive. He's on such a tight line. And then Roy decides not to go for it there, knowing the risks associated with making a dive into 13. And then he looks around for the switch back here at turn number 16. Hutchinson goes deep. Roy's going to get about 2 miles an hour off the apex compared to his rival. And now making the way on down here. They're going to be close. We can see the trio in front there of what is none other than Love, Van Rens and Stubb. They're all close together, but we're focused on the Hutchinson-Roy battle here for a little bit longer as they come down. Roy's got the overspeed here, but that Mustang is no slouch down the straights in 6th gear now. It's going to be a drag race to the braking zone. Can Roy go all the way around the outside? He's going to try it, but in here it's not going to be enough, and then we will see Matthew Bacon just waiting in the wings. But the thing about this battle is it's now in fact a battle not for 8th place, it's a 7th place, because Mikey Story has picked up a black flag, and that means a drive-through penalty for instant points, and Roy now knows he needs to go for 7th here towards turn of 1. He goes for it. I don't think Hutchinson can offer a move other than try to hold around the outside of the insider 2. Can he do it? The answer's gonna be yes, he can. They're still too wide here. They give each other the racing room as they get ready for turn number 4, but on the outside it's a wider circumference, and in the end the Ford Mustang just understeers wide. Roy gets on through. Now Matthew Bacon tries to do so as well, but Hutchinson dives back on the inside, and right now the Exodus for X driver there doing an incredible job to hold on, making his way on in towards turn number 7. And despite the fact this Ford Mustang definitely does not want to cooperate here at Miami, he is forcing it to hold on for as long as he can, and Bacon right now riding on the back of him in that Porsche. He's got the speed in the corners, but he hasn't got it in the straight surely as they make the way down. Looking back to Love, a Stubb and Van Rens meanwhile. Well, here's 3 very different cars, a Ferrari, a Ford and a Porsche. They all go towards turn number 11. No, it's not a bar joke, it's battle in action as they come in towards that braking zone, and Stubb looks up the inside, but Love on his brakes just a bit later there and able to make sure the Dutchman can't find a way on through. And meanwhile, Van Rens just behind him there, still thinking about how he gets involved in this one. But from then we have got a yellow flag for Fotis Katios. That is a slowdown that he'll need to serve within 30 seconds being awarded. He does so coming down the back stretch. He will lift off the throttle, but he will very gradually lose time to the car that's in front. He will not have the distant toe, and that releases Rhys Saunders to hold on to the pro win. Well, that might be the end of the pro win battle here, unless Katios can catch back up to Saunders. We will see, as meanwhile at the front of the field With 8.5 minutes left, they go on to lap number 13. It's Wyborn versus Nicholson. In fact, on to lap number 12. They'll get ahead of myself by a single lap. But right now, Wyborn, Nicholson and Hassel are there. Ploeg has caught up. Humphrey is caught up as well. Hayden Miller is 2.5 seconds back. It's a 5-way fight now for the lead of this race. Overall in the elite class, but for the 3 drivers at the front, this is their first time of trying to finish on the podium. It is their first chance of trying to win in the elite class. This will mean so much to all 3 of them. For Ploeg and Humphrey, it is crucial points in their championship campaigns to try and make sure they stay at the very top. So there's so much to play for here. And you can see right now, Nicholson and Hasselard, they're looking to defend side by side, but Nicholson goes deep, and as he comes on through, Hasselard gets his elbows out. There's a bit of contact. It does send Nicholson slightly to the tyre barrier, but it is a bump. It's not going to be a bruise. They come through. Now here comes Humphrey. Nicholson drops back. Surely at this point, I don't think that Ferrari's got any momentum. And as they get ready to go in towards turn at number 11, well, Wyborn and Hasselard, they will be just a little bit ahead of Ploeg. They will be safe from the man who took the race 1 win, at least for now. But how wide can Wyborn make that Ford Mustang? He's already made it quite wide, but also he was aided there by the 2 Ferrari drivers stumbling over each other. Can he get Hasselard to stumble with the Acura Ploeg? Well, that's going to be the next challenge here, but Tseard Ploeg is a different character here. He's seen this all before. He is a multi-time runner-up in the Split A Championship, but he looks up the inside into turn 60. My good lord, that is a move and a half to try and go for it there, and where it gets Hasselard out of line, which is what he wanted. He didn't want to make the move happen. He just wanted to scare the Ferrari driver, and he's done exactly that. The Vulcan Motorsports 1 driver putting his nose in and then putting it out in the last moment, and well, it's not going to be the Cha-Cha slide or the karaoke, but right now as they make the way down towards turn number 17, I can tell you one thing, Tseard Ploeg in the end, we're risking it all, but this is how much it means to him. He wants the 400 points here today, but coming out of the hairpin right now, well, he's not made it work this time around. He's going to get even more opportunities to do so at some point in the next couple of laps, but how exactly will it go about it? That's what we're waiting to see. Further back as well, we've got some fighting going on. Tim Modig and Mark Hutchinson together. And they're still fighting over 8th place here in the elite class. And what is 10th overall? But Modig gets the better run, but too much speed, too much steering up for turn 18. It's into the barrier. And you've got to feel for the sim coach driver because he's been doing so well in this race. And it all goes to the barrier. And that is now going to be a Porsche that's going to feel very slippery on the rear end with no working rear wing. Matthew Baker, meanwhile, in the other sim coach machine, doesn't make the mistake. He's still fighting with David Hutchinson right now. And the parallels between the 2 drivers and their respective battles is unreal. But right now, Baker looks up the inside, can't find it as Story Bardwell Baker all queue up behind. But as we leave there and we come back to the front of the field, we'll keep looking from left to right as best as we can as Tim Modig has to tow to the pits for the damage he's picked up. It's not possible to carry on. And now, as our top 5 very gradually is becoming a top 6, as we can see more and more cars getting closer and closer to this battle. Lewis Kenyon's almost this, as well as Reece Saunders here. Well, how many more cars are going to get brought into it? Wyborn will be hoping the more the merrier here as he defends in towards turn number 11. Hasselard looking around the outside, goes the switchback now to the outside of turn number 12. We've seen several drivers go for this. It hasn't always worked out as we ride on board the front bump here. Tseard Ploeg's 172. He's the 3rd man in this group, but as they come up the hill and through the rides here, will he try to look all the way the inside in towards turn number 16? The answer is no, not this time. He gets a better run of the corner. That Acura's got so much rotation. I wouldn't be surprised here if he's been adjusting the brake bias and perhaps he's moved the brake bias towards the rear of the car, with the idea being simply put that he's trying to get as much rotation when he comes off the brakes in these low speed corners to cut to the inside. It makes the car very unstable. It will overheat the rear tyres quite quickly, but the idea is if he can use that for the final couple of laps, he might be able to make some magic happen as he goes up the inside. Humphrey comes with it. There's contact. Hasselard comes into contact with Ploeg, and in the end they come out the corner. Well, Ploeg gets it done. It's not clean, but it is forceful, and in the end he moves into 2nd place. And Iber Hasselard right now drops down to 3rd, and William Humphrey's right there. Jack Wyborn right now will not believe when he looks in his rearview mirror and sees what's changed. But Hasselard comes back. He goes for it and he says, right, if you can do that, I can do it too. Humphrey's on the inside here. They go 3 wide on exit. And Hasselard going so deep that he's going to lose 1, he's going to lose 2. And Hasselard drops down to 4th place here as Ryan Nicholson. Oh no! Hasselard gets tackled by Nicholson coming from turn number 4, and Hasselard goes round to the barrier. He tries to get the car turned, but surely he won't be able to get it turned until the field clears. He's got a little bit of time, but he's got to be quick about this as there's more cars coming. So what was a 5-way battle for the win is now a 4-way battle for the win, or is it? As that's going to be Hayden Miller right up the inside of Ryan Nicholson. Where did that come from? And I think he's trying to his race 1 experience in this battle with William Humphrey to do that. And Miller there, well, he shows you can overtake at turns 7 and 8, even if you have to go all in for it. But here comes Nicholson back at him. And Ryan Nicholson right now, I can tell you one thing, he may not have the pace of some of these guys, but my good lord, the man is tenacious. You can't take it away from him. And as he comes into the braking zone, when he does back off versus Miller, as Lewis Kenyon, meanwhile, is coming up behind quickly. He's got Reece Saunders for company. The pro leader right now, as long as he stays at Ducati, surely he's got to be happy at this. Because Ducati is 4 seconds back here and not catching. He's matched him for pace, however. The two exchanging lap times as if it's going out of style. But further back, Mikey Story on the back of Matthew Baker. David Hutchison at the front of this group. Hutchison is building his entire queue of cars here for 8th all the way through to 12th in the pro class. They're all getting eager. Matthew Baker under pressure of Mikey Story. And Story, of course, trying to make amends for what happened earlier on, but that's not forthcoming as they make their way through the left into the right. Jane Bard went out of Baker right there with them. And Wayne Douglas, a bit further back, trying to make ground on Frank Buyerson, who has moved up to 14th place in the pro class. Good on Frank Buyerson for doing so. And in the end, he's done a brilliant job here, the DNR eSports driver, of just gradually picking up the pieces that others are left behind. It's not perhaps his best circuit, but to be fair, sometimes you just got to make sure you don't get it wrong in the race, and he's doing exactly that. After what was a bit of a troubling start to his race number 1, where he was in the right place at the wrong time, had to park the car up. Meanwhile, going to Nick Starr versus Ime Hesselar. Hesselar was the man who lost out, going through turn 3 into 4 only months ago, and we get a quick replay of that, I do believe. So this was the onboard of Ime Hesselar after his battle into the corner, and you're going to feel a slight bump to the rear of the car. In fact, taps the rear of William Humphrey, and that's what triggers then the contact from none other than Ryan Nicholson. So that explains it there. It wasn't that Nicholson had just tapped Hesselar. It was Hesselar had hit Humphrey, lost the speed backing off to make sure that Humphrey didn't go around, and then subsequently, understandably, Nicholson there had no time to react. By the time he saw the brake lights, the cars had already made contact, and that's what happens when you run so close and a tiny tap happens. You get that horrible concertina effect that we always talk about, and that's what's happened between them. But back to your live pitch as we go. 1.5 minutes left on the clock. We are halfway through this lap, so we will get a 16th tour of the circuit in race number 2 before this race is said and done. But right now, Mikey Story definitely still not done with this one as he battles with Matthew Baker. Porsche action here. Well, right now, just staying behind, looking for a better exit, as that's going to be Jay Bardwell going deep, but he switches back in the end. Both tries get it deep. However, Adam Baker goes way too deep there, and will do his best interpretation of sub-41s in too deep here. The American band, of course, not sure if they hail from Florida. I'm sure somebody will tell me in the YouTube chat if they do know, but right now, Adam Baker definitely get it wrong, and the S-Racing driver not losing his car, definitely losing some places. Meanwhile, back we come then to Baker versus Story. Story looking around the outside here, still trying to take that 9th place back in the pro class. And right now, Baker definitely fights it hard, but Story will take it in the end. Lovely move from Mikey Story to make that happen. His next target is David Hutchison. But then we come back to the very front of the field because we've still got an elite overall battle to finish off here. And as we can see, this is for the win of the race. Jack Wyborn, he has not had a podium this season. He has not finished in the top 5 this season. And right now, he's trying to skip all of that and go for his first win of the season. But Tseard Ploeg, the man who won race number 1, is right behind him. One more lap, ladies and gentlemen. Who is going to take it? Here we go. We're about to find out as William Humphrey, a second back, is trying to hold off Hayden Miller, trying to beat him at his own game. After Hayden Miller in the end beat him at the very end of race number 1 for the final spot on the podium. And we'll have to see what happens to that lead battle. Does it bring everyone else in? We will find out. We're going back to these leaders right now as we ride aboard the rear of Jack Wyborn's MRC 495 and the 195 car right now, doing everything right. Surely for Wyborn, all he's got to do at this point is nail his exits onto these long straights, and then the Ford Mustang will do the rest. Ploeg here, he is 4.5 seconds back, and the thing is, Ploeg has pushed hard, but how much tyre has he got left in that Acura? My gut instinct says he's probably got enough for one last move, but he won't use it until he absolutely has to. I don't think Ploeg has got much left in that car. He has used it all up to get to the second place spot, and that is why Wyborn is in his position. You can see that under braking, Ploeg go really aggressive as meanwhile behind, that's Humphrey and Miller. Humphrey going defensive here, going through 11 into 12. Miller trying to put the mental pressure on him as behind. That's Ryan Nicholson and Lewis Kenyon, the 3 wide. Reece Saunders looks around the outside and backs off there, just playing the games for the elite drivers. And meanwhile, Nicholson hold on versus Kenyon for just that little bit longer. But as they all continue to fight, there's also a load of fighting going on the pro class Bible. Going to have to leave that for now, ladies and gentlemen, because are we going to see history here today for Jack Wyborn? Well, down the back straight he goes. He did have a good exit out of turn number 16. It is Ploeg who's had the run, but Wyborn right now on such a tight line here coming on down. All he's got to do is hold that inside line and carry the speed into the hairpin, but it's not easy. Ploeg is there, onto the brakes they both go. 2 wide on the braking. Ploeg tries to go around the outside. Wyborn's there, extends the corner. Ploeg goes to the switchback now, but I don't think he's got it. I think Wyborn's going to have it. He makes his way through turn 17. It's full throttle all the way. 1 corner to go, and Jack Wyborn's done it. He takes victory here in his race number 2 of the day ahead of Tseard Ploeg, who finishes runner-up. William Humphrey takes third ahead of Hayden Miller, getting back in for race 1. Ryan Nixon and Lewis Kenyon complete your top 6. Rhys Saunders brings on home the win that eluded in race number 1 ahead of Fortis Katios, who's your runner-up in pro. Mark Hutchinson holds on for 9th at the end overall, ahead of Villa Katonen, who comes on through in 10th place, and that will be another podium for Katonen. 3rd once again in pro. Nick Stubb is 11th. What a drive from him to come through to 4th place in pro ahead of Ime Hasselar, and then it will be Jared Love, who just holds on versus Kyle Roy for 5th in the pro class, 13th overall ahead of Kyle Roy and Wesley Van Rens. And then David Hutchinson will miss out on the top 15 and be 16th place ahead of Mikey Story, Matthew Bacon, and then Robin Noel Brown and Jamie Bardwell complete your top 20. And it'll be Adam Baker just behind. We've got a few more drivers coming through shortly, including Mark De Vries, with Ross Young just having finished in 25th place as he makes his way on around there. And well, right now the Dutchman heading towards the line. And it's been a bit of a challenging day today for him, no doubt about it, but still keeping his head down, in it to win it, as they say. Craig Peterson comes on home in 27th, meanwhile the Briton just behind. And then it'll be James Howarth there in none other than 28th, head of Nathan Anstis, who is going to be your last finisher this race. Heading his wound down right now, and well for Nathan Anstis, understandably, after what's that very sideways start to his race. He dropped to the back of the field. He tried to recover as best as he can, but in the end, he couldn't quite make the progress he wanted to, and it has undermined what was a great race number 1. We're going to see him to the finish line, and a big thank you there to Jordan Heppel, who does clarify that Sum 41 is actually from Ontario, Canada. Well, I've learned something new today, but what is not new is the fact that Nathan Anstis always finishes his races, and he finishes this one, and well, he comes across that line. But before we go to the race results, ladies and gentlemen, we need to take a look back at what was going on further down the order, because there was all the brilliant drama at the very front, and Jack Wyborn taking his first win of the season. He's being ecstatic about that. But what happened between Kyle Roy and Wesley Van Rens? Here's a replay to explain. Now, this was right at the end of the run down towards turn number 11 of Roy, Van Rens and Love. They were all fighting over 5th through to 7th in the pro class, and they were stars just as much as our elite drivers. And it was Roy vesting on the back of Love. However, Van Rens went around the outside there, and 9 Pegasus planned for a race to try, lost out initially. But now Roy tried to go for 2. He tried to make his way around the outside of Love, who put it to the inside of 13, couldn't quite find a way through. Uphill they then went, and these three so close together as they made the way over the rise and down in towards turn number 16. And at this point, it was a drag race down the back stretch. And with Van Rens here in that Porsche, we ride aboard with just for this bit of the replay. You can see the 9 Pegasus planned for a car here, just not having that straight line speed. As much as it's got all the speed in the corners, it's the one thing the Porsche is lacking. As he made his way down, well, in the end, he was more spectator than participant. However, he got to watch what was going to happen. Roy looked to the move versus Love, but in the end, it was a fake out from Kyle Roy. Tried to get Love to outbrake himself. Did he? The answer was no. And then as they made their way out the final corner, where it was going to be 3 in a line here, all the way to that finish line. And that was the battle for none other than 5th place in the pro class, all the way to the finish line. Jared Love just holding off Roy and Van Rens. But with that, let's head back to your live pictures and let's take a look at those race results, subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And as we can see, an incredible conclusion to race number 2. And there is your confirmation. Jack Wyborn, your winner, taking his first win of the season in the elite class and overall for MSC 495 by 2 tenths of a Tseard Ploeg, who went all in for it at the hairpin on the final lap. But it didn't quite work out for the Vulcan Motorsports 1 driver. But it was still first and second. He won't be sad at that. William Humphrey took 3rd place there for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing. A brilliant drive from him. And finishing 3rd ahead of the man who beat him in race number 1 of Hayden Miller. And Hayden Miller in the end for Vulcan Motorsports 2. 9 today was full of fun and full of fighting, but he didn't quite get 2 out of 2 there versus Humphrey. Ryan Nixon took 5th place meanwhile for Split Strike Esports. Absolutely going for it, no doubt about it. His best result of the season, the Canadian driver. Well done to him. And then Lewis Kenyon took 6th place there for Vulcan Motorsports 2 and ran off that run of elite drivers. And then it was your 2 pros of Rhys Saunders, your class winner, making it 2nd and 1st today for Altitude 3M Esports. Fighting hard with Fotis Katios, but in the end, managing to outrun the Split Strike Esports driver driver, with Katios having to settle for second. Not that he'll be upset about that. He's achieved another great set of results, and the number 90 driver right now, his championship charge is definitely moving forward, and Saunders and Katios seem to be conjoined on circuit. Mark Hutchinson took 9th in the end, was the outline elite inside the top 10 for Altitude 3 Esports, only half a second ahead of Villa Kotonen. Another third place there, Kotonen making it back-to-back third place finishes. Huge points coming his way for the Flying Finn for Beowulf Racing Team. And then Nick Stubb took 11th place there. Best the rest of Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, but coming all the way up the field, took 4th place in class. He'll be very proud of that achievement. Emma Haslar, sadly, 12th place. It wasn't his to be in the end after that contact through turn number 4 sent him to the barrier. But to be fair, when he looks back at it, I think he'll reflect on the fact there was no way anyone could have avoided it for the Heracles performance driver. And then Jared Love held on to 5th in the pro class ahead of Kyle Roy and Wesley Van Rens in their brilliant fight to round off the top 15. 16th, it was David Hutchinson ahead of Mikey Story, who in the end unfortunately fell down the order but still kept up the fight for Dexterous Motorsports Squad. Ahead of Supercoaches Matthew Bacon, and then Robin Noel Brown and Jamie Bardwell completed that top 20. Outside the top 20, let's not forget Adam Baker, who finished 21st, albeit had a bit of a trip wide towards the end of the race for LS Racing. Ahead of DC Motorsport Privateers Wayne Douglas, and it was Danny Phillips in 23rd ahead of Mark Johnson and Ross Young, with Ross Young being followed up 12 seconds behind there by Mark DeVries. It was a further 5 seconds back to Frank Bewson with a consistent finish in the end ahead of James Howarth, with Nathan Anstis then your last lead lap finisher. It was 2 laps down to Matthew Jordan with a sad end to his race, and we also did see difficult races for Tim Mordig and Connor Spree. Meanwhile, sadly retirements, none more so than for Peter Duke after being sent on at turn number 11 in his contact with Mikey Story, and well, he really was the one who fell the worst of it. Albeit Story did pick up some damage as well on his front bumper, and then a Max Wheeler as well with the unfortunate retirement ahead of Stephen Donnelly, where Brandon Dyer and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis added themselves to the retiree list, with Tomlinson-Dennis unfortunately not able to start the race. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, what a second race it has been. And as quick as we started here in Miami, we bring it to a close. And I can tell you one thing, the Miami International Autodrome has delivered here, no doubt about it. But as our racing goes silent, this broadcast will go silent as well for about 5 minutes. And then we will be back for what will be our post-round interviews. Don't go anywhere. You want to miss them. We will see you again very shortly. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Tseard Ploeg gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson-Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. One driver into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3 Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there at 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Ford, for the Ford and the Corvette, the 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. It's a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiek, sorry, up high. He decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. But look at this, for the lead, Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind Tim Perry under pressure, Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bay. Look back for the rear of your second place runner of Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader. leader here. Although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back. But here comes Lux in the tow. In towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way. And it's too wide on entry. But Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to third. But Callum Lux does clear another one. And now only one car is between him and an opportunity of victory here. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being too wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time, as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be too wide with him, but too wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes to the switch back there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to kick off our post-round interviews. And what better way to do so than by interviewing our man who has taken his first win of the season in the elite class. Joining me now in the interview room is none other than Jack Wyborn. Good evening to you, Jack, and well, what a conclusion to your time in Miami. I mean, I bet you can't believe you've just taken your first elite win of the season.
No, I really weren't expecting that, to be honest. I knew I was going to have to defend, but yeah, I didn't think it was going to be like that.
Oh, goodness me. And, well, it was an incredible battle, but it's been a very long journey for yourself today. Qualifying, only 22nd overall and 11th in the elite class. How was qualifying for you? Because it looked tough out there.
Yeah, I've struggled with qualifying all through the season, but I just sort of got to a point, I was like, right, I'm not going to keep doing laps, because in a minute I'm going to end up doing more laps than I am in the race. So I was like, I'll just stick with where I've got and just see where I can get through. Yeah, and then it was just sort of like try to pick off what I could from there.
All fair play. Well, you got as far as you could and then started to pick places off. And in race number 1, there were some incidents in the mid-pack at the start, which you were able to steer clear of, but you gradually picked up the places. I do have to ask, did you feel happier on the circuit once you were actually chasing people down? Because Miami's a circuit that it's not easy to run behind another car, but you seem to make it look quite comfortable.
Yeah, well, I've never really struggled with that, like following people and that. But yeah, no, the car felt good, even with a bit of damage I got, because I got hit into turn 8. So I did have, my wheel was slightly off, but yeah, the car probably actually felt even better than what it did beforehand. So.
Oh, fair play. Well, that damage making the car feel even better. I mean, we can't promise you'll get damage every round to make the setup feel better, but still, positives coming out of it. And in the closing stages, we did see you fighting for places around 13th through to 17th. Was your focus at that point just get me in that top 15? I don't care where you put me, so long as I'm in that reverse grid.
Yeah, pretty much. That was the goal. When I realised where I was like, right, I've got to pick off a few cars and then I can stay where I am and be happy enough. I didn't quite have the pace to catch Ryan, which were obviously for P6, but yeah, I was happy with taking P3 and being behind just the 2 pros at the start of race 2.
Well, a good starting point then. And coming on to race number 2, we saw at the start, of course, what was the 2 individuals ahead, Peter Duke being one of them, of course. Those 2 pro drivers, they weren't hanging around when we went green flag racing. Was it a bit hard at first to catch them? Because it did take you some time.
No, I managed to get the run on, I can't think of his name now, in the Porsche, into turn 1. And then, yeah, it was, I can't think of when I actually passed the Corvette. I think it was like 3. But yeah, it was just like, it was quite, there was more pace than what I thought. And then I started to worry about my pace in relation to the faster elite guys coming up behind. But yeah, I managed to make that move in turn 7. And then I was just hoping that it took them long enough that I could get away a little bit.
And in the end, after you got into lead, we did see, unfortunately, that you had just a challenger come up behind you. It was none other than Ryan Nickerson, who would join you for a bit. But the two of you, interestingly enough, decided in a way, I think, to sort of work together, at least at first, because the two of you were putting some pressure on each other, but you weren't getting the upper hand on each other. You were running together.
Yeah, I think at first, I think it was, well, I can only guess from what Ryan was thinking, was trying to build a gap to the pro drivers behind before the elite come through, and where I think they then started to catch, obviously, and the gap started to come down even more when we started battling, because he obviously wanted to try and get in front to have the buffer behind him as well. I think we both tried to play the same game of having a buffer between us and the William and that behind.
I see. Well, in the end, you were able to manage that buffer, and, well, you were able to manage it for so long, and then suddenly everybody started to catch up. And what was a two-way fight for the win overall then became a seven-way fight. But you were always at the very front of it. I mean, was that nerve-wracking from your expected? Were you just thinking to yourself, I'll let them all fight each other? Because we saw that, for example, between Nickerson and Ime Hasselard, where the two Ferraris in the end almost took each other out the race.
Yeah, the more they started fighting, the happier I was with that when the gap started to grow a little bit. But yeah, it was very good to watch them all battle, so it gave me a bit more of a gap. But I literally had my spotter in with me, and he kept counting down the laps. I was like, why can't it be the last lap now before they catch back up to me?
Oh, indeed. And as the Vulcan Motorsports cars got closer and closer, one in particular, Tseard Ploeg, got so close right at the end. I mean, just take us through that final lap, because you had to make that Ford Mustang as wide as humanly possible. Yeah,
the problem I had is I struggled in the tight section, like 9, 10, up to the back straight. I really struggled with it. I was losing time to everyone there. And I thought, well, if I can just get the run onto the straight, the Mustang's got enough straight line speed to help me. But yeah, it was quite nerve-wracking when he come to the outside on the last corner, thinking what's going to happen here. But yeah, I managed to just keep the Mustang wide enough to not let him through.
Well, you held on, and coming out of turn number 17, I mean, it was a sprint to the line. What was going through? I bet you were screaming in your rig at that point.
Yeah, I was, and I was making sure that I didn't try and spin it on as I put the power down through the first left-hand kink, because I did do that earlier in the race, and I was like, please don't do that now. And then I got excited after that.
Oh, fair play. Never count your chickens until they've hatched, as they say. But you got it done in the end. A first win on the board and an incredible drive. I mean, obviously, you're very happy with it now. And does this mean now we can expect you to be up there once again in the rounds ahead?
I hope so. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the next few tracks are going to come up with. Obviously, a switch to the Mustang as well. As it seems a lot more comfortable for my style to drive in than the Ferrari. So I'm just hoping that, yeah, I can keep being competitive and hopefully keep being back up the front again.
Oh, fair play. In terms of where we go to next, I mean, it's Monza. However, it's Monza combined. How are you feeling for that?
I think it's going to be exciting. I think an hour around there could be quite a towing fest, to be fair. So yeah, it could be really entertaining.
Oh, most definitely. We look forward to seeing you be a part of that entertainment in a week's time and seeing whether you can make it another win, if not at least another elite podium. But Jack, just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a special mention to on the broadcast?
Yeah, I've got to give a shout out to Ian, who was my spotter through that, and yeah, just kept telling me the laps and the gaps and keeping me calmer through it all. So yeah, massive shout out to him for that.
All fair play to Ian. Well, Ian, if you are tuning in right now and listening, you've definitely helped this man today in taking his first win of the season. And Jack, what a win it has been. I mean, it's been great talking to you. I'm going to leave you to it and let you celebrate now and absorb it all and let the adrenaline come down. But we will see you at Monza in a week's time, and we look plenty forward to it. Until then, have a great rest of your night.
Andrew, thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here and there from a very happy Jack Wybon for MRC 495. And what a story today. In qualifying in the end, accepted the fact that it wasn't going to be the best qualifying session. But to be fair, I do like his outlook, which was, right now it's just time for me to try and move forward and move as quickly as I can. Of which, he did a brilliant job in race number 1, getting himself into that top 15, which is what he wanted to do. And in race number 2, starts third, battles with Ryan Nickerson for so long, gets Nickerson to start fighting with other drivers behind, but he knows the inevitable is coming, which is you're going to get the faster drivers in this field come through in the end. And, well, he had nobody faster than Tseard Ploeg right behind him on those closing couple of laps. But he made his Ford Mustang wide enough into turn number 17 that the Acura wasn't quite able to go all the way around the outside. And making sure not to get it wrong through turn number 18, he has taken that first win. He's hoping that he can go even further now. And, well, to be fair, with a result like that, the confidence got to be growing. And he's expecting an entertaining round of slipstream racing action. That's the Toe Fest he was referring to there. Hopefully, he won't see cars crashing. That's the other type of Toe Fest, which I'm sure he wasn't referring to. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, at Italy, can Jack Wybon make it another win? We will see in a week's time. But with that, we've got more interviews to come. Who have we got next? We're about to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if we go from the elites to the pros, we're going to go to the man who took the win in race number 2 there as well. We come to Rhys Saunders as he joins me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, Rhys, and well, what a day today. Many would say an almost perfect day. Pole in qualifying, second place in race number 1, and then the win in race number 2. I bet you're happy, but you're also probably thinking, what if I hadn't have got that pesky slowdown?
Oh, absolutely. I was really struggling in race 1. I'd got a bit too much fuel. Well, I'd got full fuel in the car. For these sprint races, you don't quite need that much. Yeah, it was a big struggle. The tyres were getting hot, and Mikey was just all over me. He was relentless, and that Porsche's got so much straight line speed. I think even without that slowdown, I might have struggled to keep him behind me.
All fair play. Well, deciding to take all the fuel in the car. I mean, I know we jokingly sometimes say that we do need to essentially ballast or hold some drivers back, including yourself, Rhys, but giving yourself your own success ballast there, that's one way to do it. Anyway, qualifying, we saw you put it on pole 5th overall in a session which did look as though the earlier you got the lap in, the better. Was that the case?
Absolutely, the track temps was just spiking throughout the entire session. I'd done all of my practice on like quite a cool track, 28 degrees. By the time we got to the start of qualifying, it was 36 and climbing. I struggled to touch. My first run was not the best. I made it count in the second run when the temps had only climbed by a couple of degrees. But fair play to Mikey, he put it P2 in class with like a run at the very, very end. And I think if you allowed for the track temp going up, it probably would have been a pole position lap if he'd have set it in cooler temps.
Well, fair play. Well, close between the two of you, and we saw that theme, of course, in race number 1. Yourself, Mikey Story, and also Ville Katonen. I mean, over the entire distance, the three of you were never more than 1.2 seconds apart, and 3 very different machines as well. I mean, 2 Porsches and your Ford Mustang, but Villa seemed a lot more confident in the corners, whereas Story had a bit more speed on the straight. How did it feel running that pack? 'Cause we haven't seen a pro class that close for a whole race yet so far.
That was good. It was really good to test my mettle, test my nerve, and see who blinks first. Obviously, I did because I got the slowdown. Yeah, it was actually they were all over me for a lot of it. But actually, with Fotis being the main championship contention, him not being in that fight, finishing P2 to one of them wasn't too disastrous.
Well, in the end, then some good points on the board, and going into race number 2, of course. What we got to see there was you starting a bit further back down the order, giving you a 6th place finish, but quickly making your way through, but always in the company of your Greek rival. I mean, just how did you balance that? Because, of course, the game is get quickly to the front of the pro order, but you've got a man in the McLaren who's never going to quite let you go.
as I say, he was absolutely relentless. It was carnage at the start with obviously the reverse grid, having the quicker cars in the middle of the pack, having the absolute aliens in elite behind us, and cold tyres as well on a really, really hot track. It was like 52 degrees by the time we got into the start of race 2. And it all kind of kicked off into turn 8, and I'd already made my decision to go to the inside early anyway. And then as some contact happened in front and it caused the pack to scramble, I was tucked up nicely on the apex and managed to gain 5 or 6 spots. And then from there, I was just being stalked by Fotis, and we was waiting for the elites to kind of come through us, clear the pros that had qualified or had started near the front, and kind of let the race come to me. So I was trying to use a bit of IQ. Unfortunately, that ran out at one point. Had an incident with Matthew Jordan, which I'm very sorry about. It was one of those ones where I'm sure the stewards will have a look at it after the race. So it wasn't quite what I wanted to happen. And then Fotis actually got past me at that point, which definitely wasn't in the plan. But I managed to get him back literally a corner later and then pull a bit of a gap. I don't know if he was struggling with tyres or not, but I managed to build a bit of a 4-second gap by the end, just stalking the elites but not wanting to get involved in their race.
Oh, absolutely fair. And just talking about that baton as well, we did get to see some incredible moments of 2 wide. Less so perhaps through the opening sequence of turns 1 to 8, but more so in the run to turn 11 through to 16. How was it going too wide around here? Because it does look as though it's one of those circuits where you've got to really drive off line to be able to do that.
In a word, claustrophobic. It was a nightmare. Yeah, lap 1, I was too wide through there with Fotis. It's really difficult through the Mickey Mouse chicane before you come under the underpass. It's really, really difficult through there to go too wide because you've got the slowdown with the bollard. And it was trying to stay to the right side of the bollard whilst also go too wide. And that happened once or twice throughout the race. And yeah, very, very tricky, very, very tight. Definitely feels like fighting a gorilla in a phone booth.
I do love that analogy, but still, in the end, you're able to make the fighting work to your advantage and bring home that win. So a huge score today, and it does mean your championship lead will increase now as we make our way towards round number 5. And in a week's time, it's not just Monza, it's Monza combined. What can we expect from you there?
The Ford should be good. A bit of V8 power should be great around there. The Porsches today had insane straight line speed, especially in the hands of Mikey. So I'm expecting him to be strong there as well. But the Mustang should hold its own pretty well. In a way, Monza combined, it's a really strange track in that it's the Monza GP circuit everyone knows very, very well. But then you've got kind of a 2-mile long banked section in the middle of it, just for fun. And as much as the banking doesn't provide too much of a driving challenge, it's quite easily flat out. You can definitely see at the start of the race potential for an incident to happen at some point in the field. And yeah, cause a NASCAR style big one.
All fair play. Hopefully we don't see a big one there, but I do appreciate your astute analysis. And Reese, we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time to see whether you can carry on this momentum that you've definitely been building. But as we let you go, well, is anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to?
As always, just like to give a big shout out to the team. Thank you to Altitude and 3M as well for putting it all together, putting the setups in, and yeah, trusting me not to damage the reputation too much. So no, thank you very much, Paul.
Oh, no worries at all, Reese. A big thank you to you as well for joining me in the interview. You're keeping those results coming, no doubt about it, no matter who you battle with. And we'll have another win in your pocket. We look forward to seeing you at Monza to see whether you can take another feature race win. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Altitude 3M Esports is Reece Saunders, and I do love the way he's able to compartmentalise his day. And talking about really the fact, what's intriguing with what happened in race number 1, I was perhaps expecting to say he was a bit gutted at Mikey beating him in the slowdown, but the first thing he really pointed out was and lent into is the fact, so long as he's ahead of his rival Fotis Katios, he wasn't as upset as he perhaps could have been. Now that's already a sign. He's already really turned his attention to the championship and who is he battling with. even this early on in the season. That's not to say Reese did not feel a little bit disappointed perhaps in the fact he lost out, but he also was very complimentary to the fact that Mikey Story was so quick, and also to Ville Katonen for staying with him, and it was such a good run. Also talking about there the track temperatures and the spiking that we saw in qualifying, it did mean that qualifying early and getting your lap in was important, but also credit to Mikey Story, who delivered a very good lap right towards the end of the session. And in race number 2 as well, focus on that adage of make your way forward, work your way with the elite drivers who are going to be coming on through, and then just hold on. And he managed to beat the man who we see behind him here in the camera shot. And again, that being the most important part. He's looking forward to Monza, but hoping it doesn't end up with a bit of stacking of cars on the opening lap there, particularly around the oval. But we will see what's to happen there in a week's time, and we'll see what Reece Saunders could do in order to make sure he's not caught up in the chaos, but indeed he sails straight on through. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come this evening. Who's it going to be with? We're about to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, our final interview of the evening is going to be with a man who definitely enjoyed plenty of battling action today, because it's Jared Love who joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Jared. And well, what a day from 24th in qualifying and an unfortunate 26th place finish in the race number 1 to what was that 13th place finish in race number 2 and a top 5 in the pro class in an incredible battle. I mean, you've had a bit of a roller coaster night.
Yeah, it started with qualifying. I should have been, I think, P2 in the pros. I was on par for a 55.4, and I cut a little bit too much of the blue off-track runoff area just in the run up to the line. Didn't give me any time, but I got an off-track and ruined my lap, and then just couldn't get another one in. I don't know if I just got a bit frustrated with ruining my lap, so down the pecking order, and then I don't know what lap it was in the first race, but I had the wee incident with... say it was next up, it was, I can't remember, someone spun in front of us that had damage. I tried to get out their way because they were just in the middle of the track, and you're already on your grip limit at that corner. It's quite an easy one to lose it anyway, just on the throttle. So the minute I changed the steering correction and lifted the throttle and tapped the brake, I slipped straight into next up, who was already into the wall, and yeah, wheel damage, irreparable. Well, not irreparable, but needed the fast repair, but yeah, frustrating first race.
Oh, understandably. I mean, we did catch that incident between yourself and Nick Stubb where the two of you got hooked to the wall on the outside eventually, and it was a nasty one, but well done to both of you for getting your cars back and into the pit lane. Obviously, it blunted your opportunities in race 1, so let's come more into race number 2. A 26th place start. You've technically got nothing to lose at this point, so did you perhaps change your attitude to race 2 compared to race 1?
Not really, no. I knew, given the lap I should have set in qualifying, I had somewhat, top few place of pace, and we just sort of capitalising on, people crashing, spinning. It's a tough track. The track temperatures that second race were upwards of 50 degrees, which really, really impacted the grip from the tyres. I did actually do 25 minutes of that race with wheel damage when I was holding my wheel at sort of 15 degrees to the left. Somebody dived up into turn 9, I want to say, the sweeping left-hander before the back straight, and took out James Howarth, and just because I was so close to them, I got a little bit of wheel damage with them spinning. It was a bit of a bad dive bomb from whoever it was, and it almost ruined James's race as well.
Well, unfortunate with the incident, but still, you're able to survive it. And then going forward, what we then saw was a really strong drive for the field from yourself. But as time went on, we saw you eventually make your way to 5th place in the pro class. And then you found yourself in the company of what was both none other than Kyle Roy and Wesley Van Rens. And the three of you seem to be joined for the remainder of the race. Just talk us through that, because that's an odd combination. We haven't seen the three of you fighting that close together since the start of the season.
Yeah, just with the damage, I was losing 0.2, 0.3 a lap to them, and I knew they were going to catch me by roughly then, or certainly knew that Van Ren was going to catch me by the end. And then Kyle obviously had pace. He's been very quick and must have had an incident earlier on in the race that he was so far back. So I saw him coming through the field and catching. And my plan was, if I defend one-on-one, I'm going to get beaten because I had a little bit straight line speed off with the damage, and I was slow coming out of some corners. So it was just to try and back them into each other, give maybe the third car the draft and get them to battle each other. And ultimately, it fortunately worked for me, and I managed to keep in front of both of them.
Well, it worked out very nicely, and just off the back of that, of course, we've seen here today a very hot Miami circuit, but car variety as well. One of the things we're spotting with your Ferraris and a lot of the Ferraris, they're very good in the corners, and also they've got so much straight line speed in the draft, but it takes an eternity to get there. You sat there on the straight sort of saying to yourself, can you politely get a move on, please? Please go into sixth gear.
Yeah, I don't think I actually use sixth gear around Miami there. Maybe I did in the back straight, I can't remember, but don't use it on the straight, you know, before the last corner. I certainly don't use it anyway. You get to the rev limiter just before you're about to brake, and it's wasting time by shifting up to just come straight back down again.
Oh, wow, goodness me. Well, that's definitely a bit of knowledge that we'll keep in mind going forward, because that shows you how long that fifth gear is. But still, a very good fifth gear for a very good fifth place today in the Pro class. Some good points then after a difficult race number one. It means we now head to Monza in a week's time for the homeland of your Ferrari machine, but it's Monza combined. When we say that, what are your thoughts?
Hopefully I can use sixth gear around the back end. I don't know. I think I've done it once in an official, and I think it might have been the Ferrari D-Class before they replaced it with the Ferrari Cup car, and it was a bomb scare. You know, people were taking people out on the banking, and you know, big pile-ups. So we'll see. I think I've been involved in instances as well, but I think the driving standard has been quite poor from SRI this season. I don't know why that is. It certainly wasn't like that last season. There's been quite a lot of incidents between all of us. So hopefully we can all keep it clean, but you know, big long straights, bank corners. It's going to almost feel like Daytona, I think, which is not a track I like, judging by how badly I done at it 2 weeks ago.
All fair play. Well, we do hope we will, like you say, get to avoid any of the big disasters, and we'll see something quite smooth like Daytona for the most part at Monza. But just before we do let you go, Jared, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, shout out to the wife. Gives me a bit of time whenever I need to practice, which is more than probably most people, because I don't think I'm very fast normally. Shout out to yourself. You know, broadcasts are fantastic, and then everyone at DC Motorsport and everyone that runs SRI as well. It's a brilliant league. You know, there's upwards of 60 of us in the grid, all battling. It's really competitive, and it's such a well-run league.
Oh, well, thank you, Jared. And indeed, a huge thank you to you as well for joining me in the interview room this evening. It's so great to hear your story, one from adversity in qualifying and the race, from number one through to success in race number two. It's always great to see a driver come on through in the end. And well, we look forward to even more from yourself in Italy in a week's time to see whether you can make the Tifosi proud. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. See you later.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview of the day, Jared Love. And well, the pro driver there really seeing everything in perspective all the way through. But it was very interesting in qualifying there, talking about the fact he invalidated his final lap when he was on course for a lap that would have put him second in the pro class, but just taking a little bit too much of what was the rumble strip onto the runoff area here at this very corner. And as he did so, well, it cost him that lap. It invalidated it, and suddenly for Jared Love, it was a start all the way down the order. And what could it have been if he had got that lap on the board? Well, it's what if. We'll never know the answer to that, but we do know the answer to is the fact that as he made some very early progress, a few bumps and knocks in the opening stages of race number one, we did see a bit of shuffling in the midfield where he was looking to battle with Nick Star, but unfortunately the two of them became pinned together coming through turn number four, and that huge instance to the wall there. Well, both drivers are able to get the cars to the pit lane, but understandably progress was stopped. Race number two, meanwhile, we got to see Jared, whilst he picked up some damage again on the open laps, he wasn't afraid to go battling, and even if he was suffering a bit more on the straights, his Ferrari was not going to worry about seeing sixth gear. It was focused on fifth, and he enjoyed a brilliant battle all the way to the end between himself, Kyle Roy, and also Wesley Van Rens, and in the end, it just managed to stay ahead and get the two of them to battle, and that was the game plan. So he's recovered some good points today, no doubt about it. He's looking forward to Monza, and he's looking forward to the fact that it is definitely going to be very similar to Daytona, which is Monza, already the Italian temple of speed, but combined with its oval, it could open up even more opportunities to make your way to the very front of the field. But will Jared Love be able to do so? We'll have to see, ladies and gentlemen, because I can tell you one thing right now, the DC Motorsport driver has yet to hit his main stride, Will we see it in Italy in a week's time? Well, that's a question we need an answer to. But with that, that concludes our interviews for today. And without further ado, let's give you a recap of who we've spoken to over the course of what has been 3 very good interviews with our drivers. And so, just bear with us there as we take a look back, and here we are, ladies and gentlemen. So these are the 3 drivers we interviewed this evening. And we started off by interviewing none other than Jack Wybon, the MRC 495 driver in the elite class, who enjoyed an incredible run to victory in the final race of the day after a difficult qualifying session and a very good race number 1. And he earns the right to be right at the front of the field in the elite class, and he made sure that win came into his hands. We then heard from Rhys Saunders, your pro class winner in race number 2, and also your qualifying pole sitter, but couldn't quite make it perfection today after a slowdown just costing the chance versus Mikey Story in race number 1. And then we came to DC Motorsports' Jared Love, who we just spoken to, the pro class driver, who in may have had a difficult start today in qualifying in race 1, but ended it on high with a brilliant drive to a top 5 in race number 2. A huge thank you to all 3 of them for joining me for an interview, and also well done to them on their performances. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about SimRacing International or how you can get on the grid for any one of our ongoing or upcoming series, there's always plenty going on here and there's never been a better time to get on the grid at SimRacing International. Well, firstly, use the Discord link at the bottom of your screen and you can join the beating hearts of the community. You won't find a more interactive place for all things SimRacing International than the official Discord. And when you join, you may be able to get on the grid for any one of these series, including what you've been tuning on to tonight, the Thursday GT3 Championship, which is currently in its 11th season, with 2 splits of 120 drives every Thursday evening. Alternatively, if you're a fan of GT3s, but you're more of a weekend racer, you can, of course, join the UK Sim Racing Community Sunday GT3 Championship that runs every Sunday, currently in its 17th season. If you're looking for something that's GT-focused, but perhaps a bit of an older car, say the GTE, well, we've got the exact thing for you. Our first season on Friday evenings is currently ongoing, and goodness me, it's off to a flying start, no doubt about it. But if you're looking for something more casual and less competitive, perhaps you're very new to the simulator and just want to find your feet, of course we do have our free to join practice league, and you can join that on Tuesday evenings, Wednesday evenings and Saturday afternoons. There's never been a better time to be on the grid, whether you're an esports professional all the way through to a rookie, and to do so head to our Discord and you can get yourself on the grid. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include CarMate, Modern Technology, the GP2 Group, and Motorsport UK. Their esports division, a huge thank you to them for continuing to recognise us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community, and we do massively appreciate that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026. But with that, ladies and gents, we now turn our attentions to next time. And next up, to complete the first half of the season, we will bookend the first chapter of the story with none other than the Monza Combined Circuit. Yes, the Grand Prix circuit combined with the historical oval. And on Thursday, the 5th of February 2026, it's going to be Grand Prix racing versus NASCAR on our GT3s. And who exactly will slipstream their way to success? Well, we'll have to find out then. But until then, you've been tuned in to another broadcast here at SimRacing International in our Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11. I've been your host and commentator for Split A, Paul Walsh. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.